Gaslighting. Have you ever been in a situation where someone made you question your own memory, your own perception, or even your own sanity? Have you ever felt certain about something, only for someone to convince you that you imagined it, exaggerated it, or misunderstood it? Have you ever started to doubt yourself, wondering if maybe, just maybe, you were the one in the wrong? This is gaslighting, one of the most powerful and insidious forms of psychological manipulation. It's a trick that can make a perfectly rational person doubt their own mind, leaving them confused, uncertain, and emotionally dependent on the manipulator. At first, gaslighting might seem like a simple disagreement, two people remembering an event differently. But what makes gaslighting dangerous is that it is intentional. The manipulator isn't just sharing their perspective, they are actively rewriting reality to make the victim question themselves. Over time, gaslighting can destroy a person's confidence, make them emotionally dependent, and even make them believe they are losing their grip on reality. Imagine this: you confront a friend, a partner, or a co-worker about something they said. You know they said it, you remember it clearly, but instead of admitting it, they respond with, "I never said that. You're imagining things. Wow, you're really sensitive. You always overreact. You have such a bad memory. How do you not remember it correctly?" At first, you push back, but the more they insist, the more you start to doubt yourself. You ask yourself, did I remember it wrong? Am I being too emotional? And as this pattern continues over time, something strange happens. You stop trusting your own mind. You start relying on them to tell you what's true, because they always seem so sure of themselves, while you feel more and more uncertain. This is how gaslighting works. It's not about one big lie, it's about small, repeated distortions of reality, designed to wear down a person's confidence in their own thoughts. Gaslighting can happen anywhere, in relationships, families, workplaces, and even on a societal level. In romantic relationships, a manipulative partner might gaslight their significant other to maintain control. If their partner suspects they are cheating, they might respond with, "You're just being paranoid. You always accuse me of things that aren't real." Over time, the victim starts to believe it's their own insecurity causing these thoughts, not their partner's actual behavior. In families, a toxic parent might gaslight a child by rewriting history. "I never treated you badly when you were younger. You've always been difficult. Maybe that's why you remember it that way." As a result, the child grows up doubting their own experiences, feeling like their pain was never real, or that they were the problem all along. In the workplace, a manipulative boss might gaslight an employee by denying conversations ever happened, dismissing their concerns, or making them feel like they're incompetent when they're actually performing well. Over time, the employee might lose confidence in their abilities, making them less likely to question the boss's authority. But gaslighting isn't just personal, it happens on a societal scale as well. Governments, media, and institutions have used gaslighting to control public perception throughout history. A country may commit human rights abuses, but insist to the public, "That never happened. You're being misled. Anyone who says otherwise is lying." Over time, people begin to doubt even the truth in front of them. When gaslighting happens at a societal level, it can make entire populations question reality itself. So why does gaslighting work? Why do people fall for it? The answer lies in psychological conditioning. First, gaslighters prey on trust. Most people assume that if someone insists something is true, they must have a good reason for it. The gaslighter exploits this trust, repeating lies with absolute confidence, making the victim feel like they are the unstable one. Second, gaslighting isolates the victim. The more someone doubts themselves, the more they turn to the gaslighter for reality checks. They stop confiding in others, because they fear they'll sound crazy. This traps them in the cycle, making escape harder. Finally, gaslighting works because of repetition. The more someone hears something, the more likely they are to believe it, even if it's false. If you hear you're overreacting, or you never remember things correctly, enough times, eventually you might start to believe it. So how do you break free from gaslighting? The key is awareness. The moment you recognize the signs, you take back your power. Here's how: trust your memory. If something feels off, write it down. Keep records of conversations, texts or emails that prove what actually happened. Talk to others. Gaslighters rely on isolation. But when you share your experiences with trusted friends or family, you'll start to see the pattern more clearly. Listen to your gut. If you constantly feel confused, anxious, or like you need to apologize for things you don't remember doing wrong, that's a red flag. Set boundaries. Gaslighters will try to keep you in their reality, but you don't have to stay there. Limiting your contact with them, or cutting them off entirely, can help break their influence over you. Remember, their confidence does not equal truth. Just because someone insists something is true, doesn't make it real. Some of the most convincing liars are the ones who believe their own lies. Gaslighting is one of the most dangerous psychological tricks because it slowly erodes reality itself. It turns strong, intelligent, independent people into confused, dependent, and self-doubting versions of themselves. It's a form of psychological warfare, but one that can be defeated if you know how to recognize it. So the next time someone tells you that your memories are wrong, your emotions are invalid, or your perception of reality is flawed, stop and ask yourself, am I really wrong, or is someone just trying to make me believe I am? Because once you see gaslighting for what it is, it loses its power over you. The halo effect. You walk into a room, and your eyes are immediately drawn to one person. Maybe it's their confident posture, the way they carry themselves, or the way others seem to hang on to their every word. They don't demand attention, but somehow, they always get it. Why? This is the halo effect, a psychological trick that makes us judge people based on first impressions rather than reality. It's the reason why attractive, charming, or well-dressed people are often seen as more intelligent, trustworthy, and capable, even when they aren't. It happens everywhere, all the time, in relationships, in workplaces, in politics, in daily interactions. And the scariest part, most of the time, we don't even realize it's happening. The halo effect works because our brains love shortcuts. Instead of taking the time to analyze every detail about a person, we fill in the blanks based on one noticeable trait. If someone is physically attractive, we assume they must also be kind, successful, and intelligent. If someone is well-spoken, we assume they must also be trustworthy and competent. If someone is in a position of power, we assume they must be deserving of it. But what if those assumptions are completely wrong? Imagine you meet someone who is charming, charismatic, and seems to have it all together. They're well-dressed, confident, and always know the right thing to say. Within minutes, you feel yourself trusting them, even though you know almost nothing about them. That's the halo effect at work. It's the reason why good-looking criminals often receive lighter sentences in court. It's why manipulative people can rise to leadership positions. It's why people fall for con artists, cult leaders, and toxic relationships, because the first impression blinds them to the reality underneath. It happens in relationships all the time. Maybe you meet someone new, and they check all the right boxes. They're attractive, confident, and they say all the right things. So you assume they must also be kind, honest, and emotionally mature. But over time, small red flags start to appear. They're selfish, controlling, manipulative, but because of the halo effect, it's hard to see the truth. They can't be that bad. They're so successful. They seem so put together. Maybe I'm overreacting. They've always been so charming. Maybe they didn't mean to hurt me. And suddenly, you're making excuses for their behavior because their good traits are overshadowing the bad ones. It happens in workplaces. A boss who is confident and well-spoken is seen as a great leader, even if they're completely incompetent. A charismatic coworker gets promoted, even if they don't work as hard as others, because in the minds of others, they just seem like a leader. It happens in politics. A politician who looks and sounds powerful is often believed, even when they lie. A person in a suit is trusted more than someone dressed casually, even if the casual person is telling the truth. It even happens in courtrooms, hospitals, and schools. Attractive defendants are more likely to be found innocent. Doctors with good bedside manners are less likely to be sued for malpractice, even if they made the same mistakes as a less charming doctor. Teachers often assume good-looking or well-behaved students are smarter, even when they aren't. And all of this happens subconsciously. But why does this trick work? Because our brains crave consistency. We don't like the idea that someone can be both good and bad at the same time. So when we see one good trait, we assume the rest must also be good. But here's the dangerous part. The halo effect isn't just about positive traits. It works in reverse too. If someone looks unattractive, awkward, or nervous, we automatically assume they are less intelligent, less competent, and less trustworthy, even when there is no real evidence of that. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone who looked shy or socially awkward and assumed they were weak or lacking confidence? How many times have you met someone who seemed too quiet and assumed they had nothing interesting to say? This is called the Horns effect, where one negative trait makes us assume everything else about a person is negative too, and it's just as dangerous. How many brilliant people have been overlooked just because they didn't look the part? How many honest people have been ignored because they weren't as smooth talking as the liar next to them? This is how manipulators win. They understand that perception is reality, that as long as they appear successful, confident, and charming, they can get away with almost anything. So how do you stop falling for the halo effect? First, slow down your judgment. When you meet someone new, don't assume they are trustworthy, intelligent, or kind just because they look the part. Second, separate personality from character. Someone can be charming and still be a liar. Someone can be confident and still be completely wrong. Third, test people's actions, not just their words. Don't trust someone just because they sound convincing. Trust them because their actions prove they are reliable. Finally, question your own biases. If you assume someone is smart, capable, or worthy of respect, ask yourself, am I judging them based on reality, or just because they fit the image of what I expect? The halo effect is one of the most dangerous psychological tricks, because it happens without us realizing it. It's why toxic people rise to power. It's why good people get overlooked. It's why we trust the wrong people and doubt the right ones. But once you start questioning it, you take back control. So the next time someone seems too good to be true, ask yourself, do I like this person for who they are, or for who I assume them to be? Because once you see past the illusion, you'll never fall for it again. Love bombing. At first it feels like a dream come true. They shower you with compliments, overwhelm you with affection, and make you feel like the most important person in the world. They text you all day, tell you how special you are, and make promises about a perfect future together. I've never felt this way about anyone before. You're my soulmate. I can't believe I found you. I never want to lose you. It feels intoxicating, like something out of a movie, and before you know it, you're hooked. This is love bombing, one of the most manipulative and deceptive dark psychology tricks used to trap people in toxic relationships. It's not real love. It's a weaponized version of affection, designed to create emotional dependency and make you ignore the warning signs of manipulation. Because the truth is, nobody falls in love that fast. At first, you think you've found the perfect person. They agree with everything you say. They like everything you like. They make you feel like you've finally found someone who truly understands you. But it's not love. It's control in disguise. Love bombing isn't about genuine affection. It's about creating addiction. The manipulator floods you with positive reinforcement, making you feel like you've found something rare, something irreplaceable. They call constantly. They text obsessively. They move way too fast, talking about a future together before you've even had time to process what's happening. And you start believing in the illusion. Maybe they're just really passionate. Maybe I finally found someone who loves me for me. Maybe this is what love is supposed to feel like. But then something shifts. Once you're emotionally attached, the love bomber starts pulling away. The sweet messages slow down. The compliments stop. They start making small criticisms, things they never mentioned before. I just don't feel like you're as into this as I am. You're kind of selfish sometimes. I need someone who makes me feel special. You're pushing me away. And suddenly, you panic. You don't understand what changed. Just days ago, they were obsessed with you. Now they're making you feel like you're losing them. And the more they pull away, the harder you try to get back to that honeymoon phase, to do whatever it takes to make them love you again. And that's exactly what they wanted. Because love bombing is never about real love. It's about control. Once they have you emotionally dependent, they manipulate you. They make you feel unworthy, like you need to earn back their affection. They create an emotional roller coaster, keeping you hooked on the highs and terrified of the lows. And if you start to pull away, if you start to see through the act, they bomb you with love again. I'm sorry, I was just scared of how much I love you. I don't know what I'd do without you. I was just testing you. I needed to know you really cared. And just like that, you're back where you started, hooked on the illusion of love. chasing a feeling that was never real in the first place. Love bombing isn't just in romantic relationships, it happens in friendships, families, workplaces, and even cults. Toxic friends will flood you with attention and praise, only to later guilt trip you, make you feel unworthy, or turn others against you. Manipulative bosses will praise you excessively when they need something, only to criticize and devalue you once you're emotionally invested in the job. Cults and extremist groups use love bombing to break down people's defenses, making them feel special, chosen, and part of something bigger, before isolating them and demanding absolute loyalty. Love bombing is dangerous because it feels good. It makes you feel wanted, seen, and valued. But once you're emotionally dependent, the real manipulation begins. So how do you break free before it traps you? Pay attention to the speed. Real love takes time to grow. If someone is talking about soulmates, forever, or making huge commitments way too soon, take a step back. Look for consistency. A genuine person's affection is steady and reliable. Love bombers swing between extreme devotion and withdrawal. If someone worships you one day and criticizes you the next, that's a red flag. Trust your instincts. If something feels too good to be true, it probably is. If you feel overwhelmed, rushed, or pressured, slow down and reassess. Set boundaries early. Love bombers hate boundaries. If you slow things down, they'll either respect your space or reveal their true colors by becoming frustrated, manipulative, or distant. Watch how they react when you say no. A manipulator will punish you for rejecting their advances. A healthy person will respect your comfort level. Love bombing isn't about love, it's about control. And once you recognize the pattern, you stop falling for the illusion. So the next time someone sweeps you off your feet so fast that you barely have time to think, pause. Ask yourself, is this real, or am I being manipulated? Because real love isn't about intensity, it's about consistency. Guilt tripping. Have you ever done something for someone, only to have them turn around and make you feel guilty for not doing more? Have you ever been made to feel selfish for setting boundaries, or felt an overwhelming obligation to help someone, because if you didn't, you'd be the bad person? This is guilt tripping, one of the most emotionally exhausting and manipulative tricks in dark psychology. It's a subtle, powerful way to control people, not by force, not by logic, but by making them feel so guilty that they comply just to stop feeling bad. At first, it doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like expectations, like responsibility, like something you should do. But over time, something changes. Instead of doing things out of kindness, you do them out of obligation, fear, and shame. Imagine this: a friend asks you for a favor. You're busy, you're exhausted, and you politely say no. Their response: wow, after everything I've done for you. It stings. You weren't trying to be selfish, you weren't trying to hurt them, but suddenly, you feel like the bad guy. So even though you wanted to say no, you change your mind. Not because you want to, but because you don't want to feel guilty. And that's how guilt tripping works. It's not about convincing you, it's about manipulating your emotions so that saying no feels too painful to bear. Guilt tripping can happen anywhere. In relationships, a partner might say, "If you really loved me, you'd do this for me," or "I guess I'll just suffer alone while you do whatever you want." Now, instead of making a choice based on what you actually want, you're making a choice based on avoiding guilt. In families, parents might guilt trip their children. "After all I've sacrificed for you, this is how you treat me." Or "You're so ungrateful. Other kids would love to have parents like us." And so the child, no matter how old, feels obligated to comply, because if they don't, they'll feel like a terrible son or daughter. In friendships, guilt tripping can sound like, "I guess I know where I stand now. I would do it for you, but I guess you're not that kind of friend. No, it's fine. I'll just deal with it myself." Suddenly, a simple request turns into an emotional burden. If you say no, you're not just refusing a favor, you're damaging the friendship, or at least, that's what they want you to believe. But one of the most dangerous places guilt tripping happens is in workplaces and society. Bosses guilt trip employees into working longer hours. "We're like a family here, and families make sacrifices. Are you really going to let everyone down?" Religious leaders guilt trip people into following their rules. "If you were truly faithful, you wouldn't even question this." And entire cultures guilt trip people into fitting societal expectations. "A good mother wouldn't need a break. A real man provides, no matter what." You should be grateful for what you have. Other people have it worse. Guilt is a powerful tool because it makes people control themselves. When someone feels guilty, they don't need to be forced into compliance. They will force themselves. So why does guilt tripping work? Because humans hate feeling guilty. Our brains are wired for social connection, and guilt is a deeply ingrained emotional response that tells us we've hurt someone or done something wrong. But guilt trippers exploit this, using it not as a guide for right and wrong, but as a weapon. And the worst part, it works even when you know it's happening. Even if you recognize guilt tripping, it still makes you feel bad. You might know logically that you're being manipulated, but the emotional weight of guilt can still push you into compliance. So how do you break free? Step 1. Recognize the pattern. If someone is making you feel guilty for setting a healthy boundary, saying no, or doing what's best for you, ask yourself, are they using guilt to get what they want? Step 2. Separate guilt from responsibility. Just because you feel guilty doesn't mean you've done something wrong. Sometimes, guilt is just a conditioned response, not a reflection of reality. Step 3. Set boundaries and stick to them. A guilt tripper will push harder when they see you resisting. They might double down, act hurt, or even turn others against you. But remember, someone else's reaction to your boundary is not your responsibility. Step 4. Shift the conversation. Instead of justifying your decision, calmly acknowledge their feelings while holding your ground. I understand that this is frustrating for you, but I can't do that right now. I know you're upset, but I need to do what's right for me. When you stop arguing or explaining, guilt trippers lose their power. Guilt tripping is one of the most effective psychological tricks because it turns your own emotions against you. It makes you control yourself so that they don't have to. But here's what they don't want you to realize. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to set boundaries. You do not owe anyone blind obedience just because they make you feel guilty. So the next time someone tries to manipulate you with guilt, take a deep breath and ask yourself, do I actually owe them this, or do I just feel bad? Because the moment you stop letting guilt control you is the moment you take your power back. Blame shifting. You tell someone how you feel. Maybe you're hurt. Maybe you're upset. Maybe something they did bothered you, and you just want to talk about it. But instead of listening, instead of acknowledging your emotions, they flip the script. Wow, I can't believe you'd accuse me of that. After everything I do for you, you're always looking for something to be mad about, aren't you? I guess I'm just the worst person in the world then. Is that what you want to hear? Suddenly, the conversation isn't about your feelings anymore. It's about theirs. This is blame shifting, one of the most frustrating and manipulative tricks in dark psychology. It's a tactic designed to deflect responsibility, making you question yourself, doubt your emotions, and even worse, end up apologizing for something that wasn't even your fault. At first, you might not even realize it's happening. You start the conversation thinking you have a valid concern, but by the time it's over, you're the one feeling guilty. Blame shifting is a psychological escape route. Instead of taking responsibility for their actions, the manipulator redirects the blame onto you, making it feel like the problem was never them in the first place. It happens in relationships. You bring up something your partner did that hurt you. Maybe they cancelled plans last minute, made a rude comment, or ignored you when you needed support. You just want to talk about it, to understand why. But instead of listening, they twist the situation to make you feel like the real problem. You're so dramatic. You always make a big deal out of nothing. I was having a rough day, and instead of supporting me, you're making it about you. You're never happy. No matter what I do, nothing is ever enough for you. And suddenly, you're not angry anymore. You're defending yourself. You start wondering, am I overreacting? Am I too emotional? Maybe I should be more understanding. And just like that, they've dodged all accountability. It happens in families. A child confronts a parent about something that hurt them. Maybe they were too harsh, too distant, or too controlling. But instead of acknowledging it, the parent flips it around. Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't perfect. I did my best, but I guess that wasn't enough for you. You have no idea how much I sacrificed for you. You should be grateful. After everything I've done, this is how you treat me. Now, instead of standing up for themselves, the child feels guilty for even bringing it up. It happens at work. An employee brings a concern to their boss. Maybe they're being overworked, underpaid, or treated unfairly. But instead of addressing the issue, the boss flips it around. You should be thankful you even have a job. I work harder than anyone here, and I don't complain. You're making my life difficult by bringing this up. And now, instead of demanding fair treatment, the employee feels like a burden. Blame shifting even happens on a societal level. Governments, corporations, and institutions use it to avoid accountability. When people question unfair policies, corruption, or abuse of power, the response is often, if you don't like it here, why don't you leave? People like you are the problem, you're too sensitive. It's not our fault, it's the people complaining who are making things worse. Instead of addressing real issues, the blame gets pushed back onto the very people raising concerns. Blame shifting works because it triggers self-doubt. It makes you stop questioning them and start questioning yourself. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I should just let it go. Maybe I'm the problem. And once that doubt creeps in, the manipulator has already won. So how do you defend yourself against blame shifting? First, stay focused on the original issue. When they try to redirect the blame, don't follow them down that path. I'm not talking about that right now. I'm talking about what you did. I understand you're upset, but that doesn't change the fact that this hurt me. This isn't about me being sensitive. It's about your actions. Second, don't let guilt control you. Blame shifters want you to feel bad so that you back down. Don't fall for it. I have every right to bring this up. I won't apologize for speaking the truth. Third, refuse to take responsibility for their actions. If they hurt you, that's on them. You don't have to justify why your feelings are valid. This conversation isn't about what I've done wrong. It's about what you did. And finally, recognize the pattern. If someone constantly avoids blame, makes you feel guilty, and turns every issue back on you, they are manipulating you. Blame shifting is designed to make you question yourself, so that the manipulator never has to change. But once you see it for what it is, you take your power back. So the next time someone tries to make you feel like you're the problem for bringing up their bad behavior, ask yourself, am I really at fault, or are they just trying to escape responsibility? Because once you stop accepting their blame, they have no choice but to face their own. The reciprocity trap. You walk into a store, planning to browse, maybe pick up one or two things. As you're looking around, an employee approaches you with a warm smile. Hey, would you like to try a free sample? It's just a small bite. No commitment, no expectation, so you take it. It feels like nothing more than a harmless interaction. But before you know it, you're walking out of the store with a bag full of things you never planned to buy. What just happened? This is the reciprocity trap, a dark psychology trick designed to make you feel obligated to give something back, even when you never asked for anything in the first place. It's based on one simple rule of human nature. When someone gives us something, we feel like we owe them something in return. At first, it seems innocent. Someone does something nice for you, and you naturally want to return the favor. That's normal, right? But manipulators take advantage of this instinct. They offer kindness, generosity, or favors, not out of goodwill, but to create a debt that you'll feel compelled to repay. It happens in relationships. A person showers you with gifts, compliments, and grand gestures early on. You weren't expecting it. You didn't ask for it. But they insist, I just love doing things for you. Then later, when they need something from you, they remind you of everything they've done. After everything I've done for you, you can't do this one thing for me. I've given you so much, and this is how you repay me. Wow, I guess I just care more than you do. And suddenly, it doesn't feel like a choice anymore. You feel obligated to give them what they want, not because you actually want to, but because you don't want to seem ungrateful. It happens in sales. A salesperson hands you a free sample, offers you a free trial, gives you a special discount. And now, you feel like you owe them your business. You weren't planning to buy anything, but something about walking away without purchasing feels wrong. And that's exactly the point. It happens in social settings. A friend insists on covering the bill. You say you'll pay, but they won't hear it. Don't worry, I got it. You thank them, feeling appreciative. But next time, when they ask for something, whether it's money, a favor, or emotional support, you feel pressured to say yes, because you don't want to feel like you're taking more than you're giving. It happens in workplaces. A manipulative boss might give you a bonus, a flexible schedule, or a small promotion, but not because you earned it. Later, when they ask you to work overtime, they remind you of how much they've done for you. We've been really good to you. You won't mind staying late, right? And suddenly, What should be a choice feels like an obligation. It happens in politics, religion, and society. Governments provide aid, but with strings attached. Religious institutions offer charity, but expect absolute loyalty. Politicians give favors to communities, but only if they support them in return. All of it works the same way. Give first, control later. Because once you accept something, even if you never asked for it, you feel like you owe something in return. So why does this work? Because humans hate feeling indebted. Studies show that people will go out of their way to even the score, even when they don't actually want to. That's why free samples increase sales, why guilt tips work at restaurants, and why people stay in toxic relationships just because someone once treated them well. The most dangerous part: the bigger the favor, the more control they have over you. Someone who buys you coffee probably won't make you feel obligated forever, but someone who helps you through a crisis, pays for an expensive gift, or saves you from a bad situation, that's a debt that lasts. And manipulators know it. They deliberately do big things for you early in a relationship, whether it's romantic, business, or social, so that later, when they ask for something in return, you feel like you can't say no. After everything I've done for you, you're really going to walk away. I stood by you when no one else did, and this is how you repay me. I never ask for anything, but when I finally do, you won't help me. And suddenly, you're stuck. Not because you actually want to give them what they're asking for, but because it feels wrong to refuse. So how do you protect yourself from the reciprocity trap? First, recognize when you're being set up. If someone insists on doing something for you, especially when you didn't ask for it, ask yourself, are they being genuine, or are they creating a future obligation? Second, remind yourself that a gift is not a contract. If you never agreed to an exchange, you don't owe anything. Third, practice saying no. If you feel pressured into repaying a favor you never asked for, simply say, I appreciate it, but I didn't ask for this. I don't owe anything in return. Finally, remember that true generosity expects nothing back. The right people don't give just to control you later. They give because they genuinely want to. The reciprocity trap works because it doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like fairness, kindness, respect. But once you see it for what it really is, you stop falling for it. So the next time someone does something for you, and you feel that pressure to pay them back, ask yourself, am I doing this because I want to, or because they made me feel like I have to? Because the moment you realize you don't owe anyone anything you never asked for, you break free. Scarcity principle. You make a decision, thinking it's entirely your own. Maybe it's something small, choosing between two brands of a product, picking a restaurant for dinner, or deciding which person to trust. But what if the choice wasn't actually yours? What if someone, without you even realizing it, influenced you to make the decision they wanted? This is the scarcity principle, a dark psychology trick designed to make you want something more, simply because it seems limited, exclusive, or about to disappear. It's not about what you actually want, it's about what you fear losing. Imagine you're shopping online, browsing for a new jacket. You find one you like, but before you can think it over, a message pops up, only 2 left in stock. Your heart beats a little faster. You were considering buying it, but now, the idea of losing it makes you want it even more. You rush to add it to your cart, afraid that if you wait even a second longer, someone else will grab it first. You don't even stop to ask yourself, do I actually want this? Or am I just reacting to the idea that it might be gone? The scarcity principle preys on fear, fear of missing out, fear of regret, fear of not having something when you need it. And once that fear kicks in, logic takes a back seat. This trick is everywhere. Businesses, marketers, salespeople, even manipulators in relationships, all use scarcity to make you act without thinking. Sales and advertising rely on it constantly. Flash sale today only. Hurry, this deal won't last. This is a limited time offer. Once it's gone, it's gone. But here's the truth. Most of the time, the scarcity is fake. Companies create artificial urgency to make you feel pressured into making an impulsive decision. Those limited time offers come back every week. The only a few left warnings are often generated by algorithms to trigger panic buying. It's not supply and demand, it's psychological manipulation. The scarcity principle doesn't just apply to products, it applies to people. relationships, and opportunities. In dating, toxic partners use scarcity to make themselves seem more valuable. They make themselves unavailable, hard to reach, difficult to pin down. They keep you chasing them, always feeling like you're about to lose them. I don't usually open up to people like this. I don't know how long I'll be around. Better enjoy it while it lasts. I've had so many options, but I'm choosing to spend time with you, and suddenly, you're hooked. You weren't even sure how much you liked them at first, but now, the idea that they might slip away makes you crave their attention even more. In workplaces, employers use scarcity to keep people trapped in jobs they hate. You're lucky to have this job. It's hard to find work these days. There are hundreds of people who would kill for your position. If you leave, you might not find anything better, and so you stay, not because you love the job, but because you're afraid of what might happen if you leave. Governments and organizations use scarcity to control populations. They limit access to resources, create false shortages, and make people compete for things that should be abundant. They tell you there's not enough for everyone, you better fight for your share. And just like that, people turn against each other instead of questioning who is actually controlling the supply. The scarcity principle works because it hijacks your survival instincts. It makes your brain think, if this is rare, it must be valuable. If this is about to disappear, I need to act now. If I don't take this opportunity, I may never get another chance. But here's the truth. The best things in life are rarely scarce. Real love doesn't disappear because you didn't text back fast enough. A good job doesn't require you to feel trapped by fear. A great opportunity doesn't force you to rush into a decision before you're ready. So how do you break free from the scarcity principle before it tricks you into making the wrong choice? First, pause before reacting. If something is pressuring you to act fast, take a step back. Ask yourself, would I still want this if there was no time limit? Second, question the scarcity. If something is limited, is it really, or is it just a marketing ploy? If someone is rare and hard to find, is that true, or are they just playing hard to get? Third, shift your mindset from scarcity to abundance. Instead of thinking, this is my only chance, remind yourself, there will always be other opportunities. I don't have to rush into anything. Scarcity creates urgency where there is none. It tricks you into chasing things that might not even be right for you, just because you fear missing out. But once you see through it, it stops working. So the next time someone tries to make you feel like you have to act right now, ask yourself, do I actually want this, or am I just afraid of losing it? Because once you start making choices from a place of clarity, not fear, you take your power back. Mirroring, you meet someone new. Maybe it's a friend, a coworker, or even a date. Within minutes, you notice something strange. They seem just like you. They have the same interests, the same opinions, the same sense of humor. Every time you make a joke, they laugh in just the right way. Every time you express a thought, they agree wholeheartedly. It feels effortless, almost too perfect. At first, you think, wow, I've never met someone who just gets me like this. It feels natural, like you've known them forever. You start to trust them, open up to them, let your guard down. But something isn't right. This isn't just a coincidental connection. This is mirroring, a dark psychology trick designed to make you trust someone faster than you normally would, not because of who they are, but because of how well they can reflect your own personality back at you. Mirroring is one of the most subtle and powerful manipulation techniques. It works because as humans, we are naturally drawn to people who remind us of ourselves. When someone mimics our body language, our speech patterns, and our interests, our brain sends signals that say, this person is like me, this person is safe, I can trust them. But not all mirroring is innocent. While many people naturally mirror those they admire, manipulators do it deliberately. They study you, they learn what makes you tick, and then they become whatever they think you want them to be. At first, it seems harmless, but once you've built trust, once you've let them in, they drop the act, and by then it's too late. Imagine going on a first date, and the person sitting across from you seems to be your perfect match. Every favorite movie you mention, they love. Every life philosophy you share, they agree with. Every goal, every dream, every frustration, they mirror it all, making you feel like you've found a soulmate. But what if they're not really like you at all? What if they're just reflecting everything you want to see? This is how narcissists, manipulators, and con artists build instant trust. They don't have to convince you they're a good person. They just have to convince you that they're just like you. Mirroring isn't just used in dating. It happens in friendships, workplaces, politics, and even cults. In relationships, mirroring is often used by narcissists and manipulators to fast-track emotional attachment. They mirror your values, your passions, even your dreams, making you feel like you've found the perfect partner. You love that band. No way, they're my favorite too. I've always wanted to travel there. Maybe we should go together one day. I feel like we have such a deep connection. I've never met anyone like you before, and because they seem so much like you, you trust them completely. You share your secrets, your fears, your weaknesses, and that's when the mask starts to slip. Maybe they start using those secrets against you. Maybe they suddenly change, showing a completely different side of themselves. Maybe they withhold affection, forcing you to chase the connection you once had. Because the truth is, they were never that person to begin with. Mirroring is also common in business and sales. A skilled salesperson might subtly mimic your posture, repeat your words, or match your energy, making you feel like you're talking to someone just like you. You know, I see a lot of myself in you. I used to struggle with this same decision. Honestly, we're on the same page. I totally understand where you're coming from. Before you know it, you're saying yes to something you never planned on agreeing to. Mirroring is also used in cult recruitment, social engineering, and even political manipulation. Leaders and influencers study their audience, learning how to speak their language, reflect their values, and appeal to their emotions, not because they believe in those things, but because they know it makes people trust them faster. This technique works because people don't question what feels familiar. When someone acts like us, we assume they must think like us too. We drop our defenses, we let them in. The problem is that once you trust someone based on mirroring, you stop seeing red flags. If they start to control you, manipulate you, or gaslight you, you'll justify it because you think they're just like me, so they must have my best interests at heart. But mirroring is not always manipulation. Sometimes it's a natural social behavior. Friends and loved ones mirror each other unconsciously to build rapport and strengthen relationships. So how do you tell the difference between genuine connection and deliberate manipulation? First, pay attention to how quickly they connect with you. If someone instantly seems like your perfect match, be cautious. True connection takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. Second, watch for inconsistencies. If someone shifts personalities depending on who they're with, if they seem to absorb and reflect the traits of whoever they're around, it could be a red flag. Third, test their authenticity. Try expressing an opinion you don't actually believe, something slightly different from what you usually say. If they immediately agree with it, it means they aren't thinking for themselves. They're just mirroring whatever you want to hear. And finally, trust your gut. If something feels too perfect, too fast, too easy, pause. Ask yourself, do I really know this person, or are they just reflecting what I want to see? Because the moment you stop falling for your own reflection, the illusion shatters. The foot in the door technique, it starts with something small, a simple favor, a harmless request. Hey, can you help me with this real quick? You say yes, it's nothing major, no reason to say no. Then, a few days later, another request. Since you helped last time, would you mind doing this too? Again, you say yes. After all, it's just one more thing, but something changes. The favors start getting bigger, the requests more frequent. They ask for more of your time, more of your energy, more of your commitment. At some point you realize you're doing things you never would have agreed to if they had asked outright. This is the foot in the door technique, a psychological trick used to gradually break down resistance and make people agree to things they would have otherwise refused. It's not about forcing someone to do something, it's about easing them into it, step by step, until saying yes becomes a habit. At first, the favor seems reasonable. A small request feels harmless, easy to say yes to. But each request builds on the last, and before you know it, you're in too deep. The final request, the real goal, comes so gradually that by the time you recognize what's happening, it feels too awkward, too guilty, or too late to say no. This technique is used everywhere, by individuals, companies, salespeople, governments, even entire social structures. It's so subtle that you don't even realize it's happening until it's too late. In relationships, A manipulative partner might start with something innocent. Can you do me a small favor? It's nothing major, maybe picking up something for them, or rearranging your plans slightly to accommodate theirs. But over time, the favors increase. Can you handle this for me? I'm too stressed. Can you cancel your plans? I need you right now. Can you just give up that hobby? We never spend time together anymore. One by one, the requests pile up, and before you know it, you're giving up your independence, your boundaries, even your sense of self, just to keep them happy. Would you have agreed to all of this from the very beginning? No, but you weren't asked all at once. You were led there, step by step. In sales and marketing, the foot in the door trick is everywhere. Just sign up for a free trial. No commitment. It seems harmless, but once you've signed up, you're already invested. And when the free trial ends, canceling feels like backing out on something you've already started. Why not continue? You've already been using it. Upgrade to premium, just a few dollars more per month. Commit to a yearly plan and save money. Each step is small, but together, they lead you into a financial commitment you never planned on making. This technique is also used in workplaces. A manipulative boss won't immediately ask you to work overtime, take on extra responsibilities, or cover for co-workers. Instead, they start small. Hey, can you stay just 10 minutes late to finish this up? You agree, it's just 10 minutes. No big deal. Next time, it's 30 minutes, then an hour, then it's expected. Before long, you're working late every day, unpaid, stressed and exhausted. All because you agreed to one small thing in the beginning. Would you have accepted the job if they told you up front that you'd be expected to stay late every night? No. But they didn't ask that. They eased you into it. Governments and organizations use this trick to introduce controversial policies. They don't implement extreme changes overnight. They start with something small and reasonable, something no one would argue against. Then they expand it, a little at a time, just a minor adjustment here, a small restriction there, until one day, people wake up and realize they are living under rules they never would have accepted all at once, but step by step, they were conditioned to accept it. So why does this technique work so well? Because people want to stay consistent with their past actions. Once you've said yes to something small, your brain sees yourself as someone who helps, someone who commits, someone who follows through. Saying no later feels like breaking character, like backing out, being unreliable, being difficult. And manipulators know this. They use your own psychology against you. So how do you avoid being controlled by the foot in the door technique? First, recognize the pattern. If someone keeps increasing their requests, ask yourself, would I have said yes to this if they had asked me for it up front? If the answer is no, pause and rethink. Second, set boundaries early. Saying yes to one thing does not mean you are obligated to say yes to everything. Third, practice saying no without guilt. Manipulators rely on hesitation. The more uncomfortable you feel saying no, the more they push. Helped last time, but I can't do it again. I don't want to commit to more than I already have. I said yes before, but I'm setting a limit now. Finally, don't let small commitments trap you into big ones. Just because you agreed to one thing doesn't mean you are locked into all the things that follow. You can always stop. You can always walk away. The foot in the door trick works because it builds slowly, unnoticed, step by step. But once you recognize it, you take back control. So the next time someone asks you for just one more thing, pause, ask yourself, am I actually okay with this? Or have I just been conditioned to say yes? Because the moment you stop the pattern, you stop being controlled by it. Future faking, it always starts with promises. A future so perfect, so beautiful, that you can't help but believe in it. They tell you everything you want to hear, painting vivid pictures of what your life together will be like. They talk about marriage, kids, travel, success, things you never even thought to ask for. They offer freely. One day, we're going to live in our dream house. Just wait. I promise, as soon as things settle down, we'll finally take that trip together. I know I've been distant, but I'm going to change. Just be patient with me. And so you wait, you stay, you give them your time, your patience, your trust. Because why would they make promises they don't intend to keep? But months go by, maybe even years, and nothing changes. This is future faking, a dark psychology trick designed to keep you hooked on the illusion of a better future. It's not about real plans, it's about control. It's about making you so focused on what could be that you ignore what actually is. At first, it feels harmless, hopeful. Maybe they're just struggling right now. Maybe they really do need more time. But deep down, there's a pattern. The promises never come true, but they always find a reason for you to keep believing. Future faking is one of the most powerful forms of emotional manipulation because it preys on your hope, your loyalty, and your desire to believe in people. It makes you invest in someone who never planned to invest in you. It happens in relationships. A toxic partner might promise that things will change right when you're ready to leave. I know I haven't treated you right, but I'm working on myself. Just don't give up on me yet. I just need some time, and then we'll finally have the relationship we always wanted. So you stay, you wait, you give them another chance, but the change never comes. Just more promises, more delays, more excuses. It happens in workplaces. A manipulative boss might keep employees trapped by dangling promotions, raises, or career growth that never actually happen. Just stick with us for another year, and we'll move you up. Big things are coming. Soon, you'll be running your own team. But every year, the promise shifts, the goalpost moves, and the employee keeps working harder, longer, giving more, hoping for a reward that never comes. It happens in friendships. A manipulative friend might promise support, loyalty, or exciting plans, but they never follow through. I'll pay you back next week. I swear, we're totally taking that trip this summer. I've already started planning. I know I haven't been a great friend, but let's do something soon. I miss you. Yet the money never comes. The plans always fall apart. The friendship remains one-sided, kept alive by nothing but empty words. Future faking even happens on a massive scale, through politics, advertising, and social influence. Politicians make sweeping promises about change that never happens. Businesses sell products by convincing you that buying this will finally make you happy. Social media influencers promise that success is just around the corner, as long as you buy into their lifestyle, their course, their method. Future faking works because it keeps people waiting instead of acting. It makes you invest in a lie because the possibility of it being real is too tempting to walk away from. So how do you escape future faking before it traps you? First, pay attention to actions, not words. If someone keeps making promises but nothing ever changes, stop listening. People who are serious about change don't just talk, they prove it. Second, set deadlines for promises. If someone says, things will get better soon, ask them, how soon? If they say, next month, hold them to it. If nothing changes, walk away. Third, trust patterns, not potential. A person can have all the potential in the world, but if their actions keep showing you the same cycle, believe the cycle, not the fantasy. And finally, don't put your life on hold for a future that may never come. The more time you spend waiting for someone to change, to commit, to follow through, the more of your life you lose. Future faking is powerful because it feeds on hope. It keeps you trapped in the promise of something better, while nothing actually changes. But once you recognize the pattern, you stop believing in illusions. You stop waiting for someone to keep a promise they never intended to fulfill. So the next time someone tells you, just wait, things will get better, ask yourself, have they ever actually changed before? Or is this just another empty promise? Because once you stop chasing the future, they keep dangling in front of you. You finally take control of your own. Silent treatment. They won't yell, they won't argue, they won't tell you what's wrong. Instead, they go quiet, they withdraw, they ignore your texts, your calls, your presence in the room. They act as if you don't exist, as if your words aren't worth responding to, as if you're not even there. At first, you think maybe they just need space, maybe they're upset and don't know how to talk about it. So you try to reach out, to fix whatever went wrong. You apologize. Even if you don't know what you did, you replay the last conversation in your head, searching for the mistake. But there's no answer, just silence. This is the silent treatment, one of the most passive-aggressive and psychologically damaging manipulation tactics. It's not just about ignoring someone, it's about control. It's about making you feel powerless, forcing you to break first, to chase, to beg for the connection back. Because that's the real goal of the silent treatment. It's not about communication, it's about making you so uncomfortable with their silence that you'll do anything to make it stop. At first, it doesn't seem like abuse. They're not yelling, they're not calling you names, they're just not talking. But silence can be louder than words. It can feel like rejection, abandonment, and emotional starvation, all at the same time. In relationships, a partner might use the silent treatment after an argument. Instead of resolving the issue, they shut down, punishing you with silence until you come crawling back, desperate for any sign that things are okay again. I don't want to talk about it. Figure it out yourself. I'll talk to you when I feel like it. Days pass, maybe even weeks. You feel guilty, anxious, on edge. You don't even care about winning the argument anymore. You just want them to acknowledge you again. And the moment you give in, the moment you apologize just to end the silence, they've won. Because now they know they can control you without saying a word. In families, parents might use the silent treatment to punish children for disobedience. A child who speaks up, disagrees, or fails to meet expectations might be met with cold, crushing silence. You disappointed me. I have nothing to say to you. I'm not mad. I'm just done with you. Until you learn some respect, I have nothing to say. And so the child learns that love is conditional, that approval can be given or taken away at will, that silence is a weapon they have no defense against. In workplaces, bosses and co-workers use the silent treatment to freeze people out, to isolate, intimidate, and remind them of their place. A mistake, a disagreement, even a simple misunderstanding can result in an invisible wall of silence, making the victim feel excluded and unwelcome. Oh, I didn't think you wanted to be included in this meeting. You'll get the memo when it's relevant to you. I just assumed you already knew. Guess you weren't paying attention. It's a form of psychological warfare, a way to make someone feel small, insignificant, and powerless. But why does the silent treatment work? Because humans are wired for connection. Studies have shown that social rejection triggers the same pain receptors in the brain as physical injury. The silent treatment feels like an emotional wound you can't see, but one you feel deeply, and the manipulator knows this. They know that ignoring you will make you feel desperate for validation. They know you'll start questioning yourself, wondering if you really did something wrong. They know that eventually, you'll break the silence for them, and in doing so, hand over your power. So how do you fight back? First, recognize the pattern. Not all silence is manipulative. Some people need space to process emotions. But if someone is using silence as a weapon, as a way to punish, control, or make you beg for their attention, that's abuse. Second, don't chase them. The silent treatment only works if you play into it, if you keep reaching out, apologizing, trying to fix something that you don't even understand. Instead of begging for their attention, walk away. Let them sit in their silence. Let them realize that you won't play their game. Third, set boundaries. If someone tries to manipulate you with silence, call it out. I see that you're upset, but I won't engage in this kind of treatment. If you're ready to have a real conversation, let me know. Until then, I'm moving forward. And if they continue, if they try to use silence as a leash to keep you chasing them, cut the leash. Because the moment you stop fearing their silence, they lose all their power. The silent treatment is one of the most painful forms of emotional manipulation, not because of what is said, but because of what is withheld. It makes you crave acknowledgement, validation, anything to break the coldness. But once you recognize it for what it is, a tactic, a game, a test of control, you realize something powerful. You don't have to play along. So the next time someone tries to punish you with silence, don't beg, don't plead, don't chase. Just ask yourself, do I really want to be with someone who thinks my pain is a strategy? Because once you stop reacting to the silent treatment, it loses its voice. The sunk cost fallacy. You know something isn't right. Maybe it's a relationship, a job, a friendship, or a situation you've been stuck in for too long. Deep down, you feel it. You should leave. You should walk away. But you don't. Instead, you convince yourself to stay. I've already put so much time into this. If I leave now, all my effort will have been for nothing. Maybe if I just try a little harder, things will get better. And so you keep investing more and more, trapped by your past efforts, unable to let go. This is the sunk cost fallacy, a dark psychology trick that keeps people stuck in bad decisions, not because they still make sense, but because they've already invested too much to walk away. It's why people stay in toxic relationships long after the love is gone. It's why people stay in dead-end jobs instead of looking for better opportunities. It's why gamblers keep betting more money, even when they're losing, because in their mind, quitting feels like failure. But here's the truth: the past is gone. Your time, energy, and effort have already been spent, and no matter how much more you invest, it won't change the fact that the situation isn't working. But your brain doesn't see it that way. The sunk cost fallacy works because we hate losing. When we put time, effort, money, or emotions into something, we feel a deep psychological need to make it worth it, even if that means staying in a situation that makes us miserable. It happens in relationships all the time. Someone stays with a partner who treats them badly, not because they believe in the relationship, but because they've already spent years with them. I can't break up now. We've been together for so long. We've been through too much to give up now. If I leave, I'll have wasted all these years. But the years are already gone, and staying won't bring them back. It happens in careers. Someone hates their job, but instead of leaving, they convince themselves to stay. I've already worked here for 5 years. Starting over would be too hard. I've spent too much time building my career here. What if I leave and regret it? And so they keep waking up every day dreading work, feeling trapped, but refusing to walk away. It happens with money. A person buys expensive concert tickets, but when the day comes they don't feel like going. Instead of accepting the loss, they force themselves to go because they don't want their money to be wasted, even if they don't enjoy it. Gamblers lose thousands of dollars, but instead of stopping they keep betting more, thinking I can't stop now, I need to win back what I lost. And before they know it, they've lost everything. It even happens in education. Someone realizes they hate their degree, but instead of switching they stick with it, because they've already spent too much time in school. I've already put 3 years into this degree. I can't quit now. But what's worse, losing those 3 years, or spending the rest of your life in a career you hate. And the scariest part, the longer you stay, the harder it is to leave. Because every day, every month, every year adds more investment to the trap. Manipulators use this trick on purpose. Toxic partners make you believe you've already given too much to leave. Bad employers string you along with false promises so you won't quit. Scammers start with small requests, then gradually demand more. Because the more you've already given, the harder it is to say no. The sunk cost fallacy is one of the biggest reasons people stay stuck, because walking away feels like admitting defeat, even when staying is destroying you. So how do you escape it? First, accept that the past is gone. No matter how much time, effort, or money you've put in, you can't get it back. The only thing that matters is whether staying is worth it moving forward. Second, ask yourself this: if I had no history with this, would I still choose it today? Would you still pick that relationship, that job, that situation if you weren't already tied to it? If the answer is no, that's a sign you're only staying because of the past. Third, flip your perspective. Instead of thinking if I leave, all my effort will have been wasted, tell yourself, if I stay, I'll waste even more. Finally, remember this: letting go is not failure. The real failure is wasting more time on something that isn't working. The longer you hold on to something out of fear, the more power it has over you. So the next time you feel trapped in a situation just because you've already put so much into it, stop. Ask yourself, am I staying because I actually want this, or because I'm afraid to let go? Because once you stop chasing what's already lost, you finally set yourself free. Analysis paralysis. You sit down to make a decision. Maybe it's a big one, like choosing a career path, deciding whether to end a relationship, or figuring out where to move. Or maybe it's something smaller, like picking what to eat for dinner, or which show to watch. At first you feel clear-headed. You weigh your options, consider the pros and cons, but then doubt creeps in. What if I make the wrong choice? What if I regret this later? What if I miss out on something better? Suddenly you're stuck, frozen, unable to move forward. And the longer you stay in this mental tug-of-war, the harder it gets to decide. The more options you consider, the more afraid you are of making a mistake. This is analysis paralysis, a dark psychology trick that keeps people trapped in endless overthinking, so stuck in their own thoughts that they never take action. It's why people stay in toxic relationships far longer than they should. It's why people remain in jobs they hate instead of making a change. It's why people watch opportunities pass them by while they're still trying to decide what to do. And the worst part, the more you think, the less you act. Analysis paralysis happens when your brain gets overwhelmed with too much information, too many possibilities, or too much pressure to make the right choice. At first you might think that overanalyzing is helping you. After all, shouldn't careful decision-making be a good thing? But in reality, thinking too much often leads to doing nothing at all. Imagine this. You want to start a new fitness routine. You research different workout plans, compare diets, watch YouTube tutorials, and read articles. But instead of actually going to the gym, you keep gathering more information. Maybe I should wait until I have the perfect plan. What if I pick the wrong type of exercise? I need to do more research first. Weeks go by, then months, and before you know it, you've done nothing, except think about it. This is exactly why analysis paralysis is used as a manipulation tactic. Marketers, governments, and corporations flood people with information, not to inform them, but to overwhelm them. Think about news media. One channel tells you one thing, another tells you the opposite. Then social media floods you with more opinions, more arguments, more contradicting facts. Suddenly, you're lost. You don't know what to believe. And instead of taking action, you just sit there, consuming more information, going in circles. Politicians use this during elections. They overload people with debates, scandals, policy arguments, and expert opinions, so that voters feel too exhausted to think critically. Instead of carefully considering their options, many people just default to what's familiar, what's easiest, or what feels safest. Marketers do it too. They give you too many options. Instead of offering 3 or 4 choices, they bombard you with hundreds, different versions, different features, different deals. Your brain gets overwhelmed. So what happens? You either default to whatever seems most familiar, or you give up entirely. And this is the dark truth about analysis paralysis. It doesn't just keep you from making bad decisions, it keeps you from making any decisions, which is exactly what manipulators want. If they can keep you stuck in your head, you won't challenge the system. If they can keep you questioning yourself, you won't trust your own instincts. If they can keep you overwhelmed, you'll look to them to tell you what to do. And just like that, you're under their control, without even realizing it. So how do you break free from analysis paralysis? First, stop looking for the perfect decision. Perfectionism is the enemy of action. There is no perfect choice. There are just choices. If you wait for the perfect time, the perfect answer, or the perfect plan, you'll be waiting forever. Second, set a deadline for your decision. Give yourself a set amount of time to think. But once the time is up, commit to a choice. I'll pick a workout plan by tomorrow and start it. I'll send in my job application by the end of the week. I'll decide on my next step and move forward. No more hesitation. Third, limit your options. Too many choices create paralysis. Instead of considering 10 different options, narrow it down to 2 or 3. If you're job hunting, pick 2 industries instead of researching 10. If you're dating, stop analyzing every small detail and focus on whether you feel good around them. If you're making a purchase, compare a few options instead of reading hundreds of reviews. Finally, trust your instincts. Your gut is often smarter than your overthinking. If a decision feels right, go with it. If it feels wrong, walk away. Because here's the truth, making a wrong decision is better than making no decision at all. Even if you make a mistake, you'll learn, adjust, and move forward. But if you stay stuck in your head, afraid to act, nothing changes. So the next time you catch yourself overthinking, ask yourself, am I actually thinking, or am I just afraid to choose? Because the moment you stop overanalyzing, you take control of your life again. Decision paralysis. You make a decision. Maybe it's something small, choosing between 2 brands of a product, picking a restaurant, or deciding which job offer to take. At first, you feel confident, but then, doubt starts creeping in. Did I make the right choice? Maybe the other option was better. What if I regret this later? And before you know it, you're anxiously second-guessing yourself, obsessing over the choices you didn't make. This is decision paralysis, a dark psychology trick that makes people freeze when faced with too many choices. It's not just about struggling to decide, it's about becoming so overwhelmed that you stop making decisions altogether. It's the reason why people stay stuck in bad jobs, bad relationships, and bad situations, not because they don't want to change, but because the options feel too overwhelming to process. And the scariest part, the more choices you have, the harder it is to choose. Imagine you walk into a grocery store to buy a simple bottle of shampoo. You expect a few options, but instead, you find an entire aisle filled with different brands, formulas, scents, and benefits. Moisturizing or volumizing, organic or sulfate-free, brand name or store brand. Suddenly, something as simple as buying shampoo feels like a major decision. So, what do? Instead of carefully comparing all the choices, you grab the one that looks most familiar, or worse, you leave without buying anything at all. This is decision paralysis in action. When faced with too many choices, the brain panics. Instead of making a well-thought-out decision, it either defaults to the easiest option or shuts down completely. It happens in relationships. Someone knows their relationship is toxic, but instead of leaving, they stay stuck because the idea of choosing between being alone, dating again, or trying to fix things is too overwhelming. What if I leave and regret it? What if there's no one better out there? What if things could get better if I just try harder? And so they do nothing. It happens in careers. Someone is miserable in their job. They know they want something better, but when they start looking, they find too many options, different industries, different salaries, different risks. Instead of making a choice, they stay where they are, because at least it's familiar. It happens in everyday life. You want to start a new hobby, but there are too many to choose from. You want to book a vacation, but there are too many destinations. You want to start investing, but there are too many strategies. So instead of picking anything, you pick nothing. And this is exactly why decision paralysis is used as a manipulation tactic. Marketers, politicians, corporations, and even individuals overwhelm people with choices, because they know that when people are paralyzed by indecision, they either take the easiest option or allow someone else to decide for them. Take online shopping, for example. Big companies bombard you with choices. If you're searching for a laptop, you'll be shown hundreds of models with different prices, specs, and features. Your brain struggles to compare everything. So what happens? You either stick to a familiar brand, take the one with the highest reviews, or abandon the search entirely. And guess who benefits from that? The brands that know how to make themselves look like the easiest, most obvious choice. Politicians do this too. They flood people with information, conflicting opinions, and endless debates, so that voters feel too overwhelmed to think critically. Instead of carefully evaluating candidates, people default to familiar names, slogans, or party lines. And this is the real danger of decision paralysis. It doesn't just keep people stuck, it makes them easier to control, because when people feel overwhelmed, they stop thinking for themselves. So how do you escape decision paralysis? First, limit your options. If you have too many choices, narrow them down to 3. This makes it easier for your brain to compare options without getting overloaded. Second, set a time limit. If you allow yourself to overthink, you'll stay stuck forever. Give yourself a deadline, even if it's just 5 minutes. I'll pick a vacation destination in 24 hours and stick with it. I'll decide on a gym membership by the end of the day. I'll apply to at least one job by Friday. Third, stop chasing the perfect choice. People get paralyzed because they want the best option, but the truth is, there is no perfect choice. Most of the time, any choice is better than no choice. And finally, trust your instincts. If you've done some research and weighed your options, don't keep second-guessing yourself. Go with what feels right and move forward, because the worst decision you can make is no decision at all. So the next time you feel yourself spiraling into indecision, ask yourself, am I actually thinking, or am I just afraid to choose? Because once you stop overthinking, you finally take control. Cognitive dissonance. You meet someone, and instantly they make a strong impression. Maybe they're charming, well-dressed, and confident. Maybe they have the perfect smile, or an air of authority that makes them seem trustworthy. And just like that, you form an opinion about them before you even really know them. Days, weeks, or even months later, something strange happens. You start noticing red flags. They aren't as honest as they seemed. Their confidence hides incompetence. Their charm is a mask for manipulation. But instead of trusting your instincts, you justify their behavior. They've always seemed so kind. Maybe I'm misunderstanding them. They must have a good reason for acting this way. They've been great to me before. Maybe I'm overreacting. This is cognitive dissonance, a dark psychology trick that makes you ignore reality in order to avoid discomfort. It's what happens when the truth conflicts with what you already believe, and your brain refuses to accept it. It's why people stay in toxic relationships. It's why people defend corrupt leaders. It's why we struggle to admit when we've been fooled. because changing your mind feels painful. Imagine you trust someone completely. Maybe it's a friend, a romantic partner, or even a public figure. You believe they're a good person, honest and trustworthy. Then one day, they do something that completely contradicts that image. Maybe they lie to you, maybe they manipulate you, maybe they betray you in a way you never saw coming. Now, you have two choices. Accept the truth that they aren't who you thought they were. Defend them, even if it means lying to yourself. And most people choose to lie to themselves. They wouldn't do that on purpose. Maybe I just misunderstood. If they really were bad, I would have seen it before now, because the truth is too uncomfortable to face. Cognitive dissonance happens because your brain wants consistency. It doesn't like contradictions, so when new information challenges what you already believe, it tries to protect you from the discomfort of being wrong. It happens in relationships. You start dating someone, and they seem perfect. They treat you well, make you feel special, and say all the right things. But then small red flags appear. Maybe they start being controlling. Maybe they gaslight you. Maybe they cross boundaries you never thought you'd tolerate. Instead of walking away, you convince yourself, they're just going through a rough time. They didn't mean to hurt me. They've been so good to me before. It must be my fault. And so you stay. It happens in families. A child grows up in an abusive household, but convinces themselves, my parents love me, they're just strict. Even as they suffer, they cling to the belief that their family has their best interests at heart, because admitting otherwise would shatter their entire reality. It happens in workplaces. A toxic boss mistreats employees, but instead of quitting or speaking up, people convince themselves, at least I have a job. Maybe I'm just not working hard enough. They push us because they want us to be better. It happens in society. People vote for a leader, support a cause, or follow a belief system. Then evidence comes out that contradicts everything they stood for, but instead of admitting they were wrong, they double down. The media is lying. There's more to the story. Everyone else just doesn't understand, because if they accept the truth, they have to accept that they were tricked, manipulated, or misled. And that is a painful reality to face. So why does cognitive dissonance work? Because your brain values comfort over truth. It's easier to defend a lie than to admit you've been fooled. It's easier to justify bad behavior than to walk away. It's easier to hold on to an old belief than to accept new evidence. And manipulators know this. They know that once you've invested in them, whether it's love, trust, money, or loyalty, you won't want to back out. They know that the more time, energy, and emotion you've put into something, the harder it will be for you to admit it was a mistake. That's why cults exist. That's why abusive relationships last for years. That's why scams work, even after people start noticing the red flags. So how do you break free from cognitive dissonance? First, pay attention to your discomfort. If something doesn't feel right, don't ignore it. Ask yourself, am I making excuses for this person? Am I ignoring facts just to protect my feelings? Second, accept that being wrong isn't failure. Changing your mind isn't a weakness, it's growth. If new information contradicts your beliefs, don't fight it, adapt. Third, step back from emotional investments. The more emotionally attached you are to something, the harder it is to see clearly. When in doubt, try to look at things as an outsider would. Finally, ask yourself, what would I tell a friend? If someone you loved was in your situation, what advice would you give them? If you'd tell them to walk away, but you're staying, you're probably trapped in cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is powerful because it traps you in your own mind. It makes you defend people who don't deserve it. It makes you ignore the truth just to protect your pride. But once you recognize it, it loses its power. So the next time you find yourself defending something that doesn't feel right, stop. Ask yourself, am I holding on to this belief because it's true, or because I'm afraid of being wrong? Because the moment you choose truth over comfort, you break free. Reframing, it starts with a shift in perspective. You remember something clearly. Maybe it was an argument, a betrayal, or a situation where you felt hurt or disrespected. But then, someone tells you that you're looking at it the wrong way. That's not what happened. You're misunderstanding. You're being too negative. Try to see it from my point of view. You're focusing on the bad when there's so much good. At first it sounds reasonable. Maybe you should see things differently. Maybe you are overreacting, but something feels off. Because every time you bring up a problem, a boundary, or a legitimate concern, the issue isn't addressed. Instead, the narrative gets rewritten. and slowly you start doubting your own perception of reality. This is reframing, a dark psychology trick designed to manipulate emotions, twist perspectives, and make people question their own judgment. It's not just about looking at things differently, it's about controlling how you see the truth. And once someone controls your perspective, they control you. It happens in relationships. A toxic partner reframes your experiences so that their bad behavior seems justified. I didn't yell at you, I was just passionate. You're acting like I was being cruel, but really, I was trying to help you. You're making this into something bigger than it is. Now instead of trusting your emotions, you start second-guessing yourself. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe they weren't being mean. Maybe they were just stressed. Maybe I should let this go. And once you accept their version of reality, you stop trusting your own. It happens in friendships. A manipulative friend reframes their actions, so they never have to take responsibility. I wasn't ignoring you, I was giving you space. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. You just take things too personally. I was only being honest. Would you rather I lie to you? Now instead of recognizing their toxic behavior, you feel guilty for even questioning it. And that guilt keeps you trapped in the friendship. It happens in workplaces. A boss or co-worker reframes unfair treatment so that it seems like a favor. I know I'm giving you extra work, but it's because I trust you more than the others. You're not underpaid, you're just paying your dues. This isn't micromanaging, it's just strong leadership. Now instead of standing up for yourself, you feel lucky to be in this position. It happens in families. A controlling parent reframes their actions so that manipulation looks like love. I'm not controlling, I just care about you. I'm not trying to guilt trip you. I just want you to understand how much I've sacrificed. I only criticize you because I want you to be the best version of yourself. And suddenly, you stop questioning their control, because they've convinced you that it's for your own good. It even happens on a societal level. Governments, media, and institutions reframe events to control public perception. We're not taking away freedoms, we're protecting you. This isn't corruption, it's just politics. You're not being deceived, you're just too emotional to see the truth. And once enough people accept the reframed version of reality, they stop resisting, because they've been convinced that there's nothing to resist. So why does reframing work so well? Because the brain hates cognitive dissonance. If reality conflicts with what we want to believe, our brain looks for a way to make it make sense. And reframing provides that sense. It gives you a reason to ignore red flags. It gives you an excuse to avoid difficult truths. It gives you a way to justify things that shouldn't be justified. And once you start seeing reality through someone else's lens, you lose the ability to see it through your own. So how do you protect yourself from reframing manipulation? First, trust your initial feelings. If something felt wrong in the moment, don't let someone convince you later that it wasn't. Your emotions are valid. Just because someone can explain away their actions, doesn't mean those actions were okay. Second, pay attention to patterns. If someone constantly reframes situations to make themselves look good, and make you feel like you're overreacting, that's not just a different perspective, that's manipulation. Third, stick to the facts. Manipulators use emotionally charged reframing to make things seem different than they actually are. Take a step back. What really happened? What was actually said? What are the facts without the emotional spin? Because when you remove their framing, you can see the truth. Finally, remember this: a healthy person doesn't need to rewrite reality to avoid accountability. They don't need to convince you that what happened wasn't real. They don't need to make you feel guilty for seeing things differently. They don't need to reframe the truth to make themselves look better. So the next time someone tells you that you're looking at things the wrong way, ask yourself, am I really misunderstanding, or am I just seeing something they don't want me to see? Because once you recognize reframing, you stop being controlled by it. Conversational narcissism: you open up to someone. Maybe you're being vulnerable, sharing a struggle, or talking about something that's been weighing on you. You just want to be heard, understood, maybe even supported. And then instead of listening, instead of acknowledging what you're saying, they do something unexpected. They start talking about themselves. Oh, I know exactly how you feel. One time I went through something even worse. Yeah, but you think that's bad. You should hear what happened to me. You're upset about that. I deal with way more than you. And just like that, the conversation isn't about you anymore. This is conversational narcissism, a dark psychology trick designed to shift attention away from you and back onto them. It's not always malicious, but when used deliberately, It's a powerful way to dominate conversations, minimize your feelings, and make sure they are always the center of attention. At first, it seems harmless. Maybe they're just relating to you, trying to find common ground. But over time, you start to notice a pattern. Every conversation somehow ends up being about them. You bring up a tough day at work, they had a worse one. You share an accomplishment, they've done something bigger. You express frustration, they've suffered way more. It happens in friendships, relationships, families, and workplaces. Imagine confiding in a friend about a stressful situation. You just want to vent, to be heard, but instead of listening, they immediately jump in. Oh yeah, that reminds me of when I went through something similar. Let me tell you all about it. Now, instead of supporting you, they've turned your experience into an excuse to talk about themselves. Or maybe you're in a relationship, and you bring up something that's bothering you. Instead of addressing it, your partner shifts the focus. You think I don't listen to you. You have no idea how much stress I'm under right now. You're upset. You don't even realize how hard I have it. And suddenly you're the one apologizing, even though you were the one with a concern. Conversational narcissism is even used in professional environments. A manipulative boss or coworker might constantly interrupt, override, or hijack conversations to make sure that their voice is always the loudest in the room. That's an interesting idea, but what I think is really important is, I've already dealt with this before, so let me explain how it should be done. Yeah, we can talk about that later, but first let's focus on what I need. And just like that, your contributions are erased. But why does this work? Because most people are polite. We don't want to interrupt. We don't want to seem rude. So when someone hijacks a conversation, we naturally step back and let them take over. Conversational narcissists rely on this. They know that by constantly redirecting attention back to themselves, they can subtly dominate every interaction without anyone even realizing what's happening. And the worst part, over time, you stop sharing at all. If every time you talk about yourself, someone one-ups you, dismisses you, or makes it about them, eventually, you learn to stay quiet. You learn that your feelings, your experiences, don't really matter. So how do you recognize and stop conversational narcissism? First, notice the pattern. If someone always turns the conversation back to themselves, they are not truly listening, they are just waiting for their turn to talk. Second, set boundaries. If someone constantly interrupts or hijacks conversations, don't let them take over. Actually, I wasn't finished. Let me finish my thought first. Or if they try to one-up you, don't engage. Right now, I'd really appreciate just being heard. Third, test the balance. Pay attention to how much space they give you in conversations. If they never ask about you, never let you express yourself fully, they're not interested in real connection. They just want an audience. Finally, don't let them train you into silence. Just because someone constantly redirects attention to themselves does not mean your experiences don't matter. Conversational narcissism works because it slowly conditions people to stop speaking up. It makes one person the center of attention, while everyone else fades into the background. But once you recognize it, you can take back your voice. So the next time someone keeps making the conversation about themselves, ask yourself, is this an actual conversation, or am I just their audience? Because once you stop playing along, they lose control of the conversation. Damning with faint praise. You achieve something. Maybe it's a small win. Maybe it's a major accomplishment. You're proud of yourself. You worked hard for this. And then someone offers a compliment, but something about it feels off. Wow, I never expected you to pull that off. You did great. For someone with your experience, that's really impressive. I love how you don't care what other people think. At first it seems positive, but instead of feeling good, you feel small, self-conscious, maybe even embarrassed. The words don't sit right. It's not a direct insult, but somehow it doesn't feel like real praise either. This is damning with faint praise, a dark psychology trick designed to make someone feel less than while appearing supportive. It's one of the most manipulative ways to undermine confidence, because instead of tearing someone down outright, it makes them question themselves. A real compliment makes you feel good. This kind of praise, however, leaves you wondering, wait, was that actually a compliment? Or was that an insult in disguise? And that's exactly the point. Unlike outright criticism, which is easy to recognize and respond to, damning with faint praise is subtle. It makes you hesitate. It makes you second-guess yourself. And worst of all, it makes it difficult to push back, because if you do, The person delivering the backhanded compliment can easily gaslight you into thinking you're being too sensitive. Or, I was just trying to be nice. Why are you overreacting? Now, instead of addressing their behavior, you're the one on the defensive. This trick is used everywhere. It happens in relationships, friendships, workplaces, even in families. Imagine you spend months working toward a goal. Maybe it's a fitness transformation. Maybe it's a big promotion at work. Maybe you've finally finished a personal project. You share your success, expecting encouragement, and then you hear, "Wow, I never thought you'd actually do it." It sounds like they're celebrating you, but the underlying message is clear: "I didn't believe in you." Or maybe you show someone something you're proud of, a painting, a new outfit, a speech you delivered. Instead of simple praise, they say, "You're actually pretty good at this. Who knew?" And suddenly, instead of feeling accomplished, you feel like you had to prove yourself to them, like they didn't expect much from you in the first place. This trick is especially common in competitive environments, workplaces, schools, and social groups, where people want to undermine others while looking supportive. "That was a great presentation. I mean, yeah, you stumbled a little, but overall, not bad. Your work is really improving. Keep practicing, and who knows, maybe one day, you'll be an expert. I wish I had your confidence. I could never wear something like that." And just like that, your confidence takes a hit, not because they directly criticized you, but because they planted a seed of doubt in your mind. But why does this work? Because humans crave validation. We are wired to respond to praise, even when it's mixed with something negative. And when we hear a compliment, we want to believe it's real. So we push aside the uneasy feeling, convincing ourselves that maybe we're just overthinking it. And that's what makes damning with faint praise so effective. It allows someone to tear you down while looking like they're lifting you up. But what kind of person does this? Sometimes it's insecurity. People who feel threatened by your success may try to undermine you subtly, so they don't have to face their own shortcomings. Other times it's about control. If someone wants to keep you dependent on their approval, they won't tear you down completely, but they also won't let you feel fully confident. And in some cases it's just plain manipulation, a way to keep you second-guessing yourself so that you never fully recognize your own worth. So how do you protect yourself from this? First, trust your gut. If a compliment doesn't make you feel good, there's a reason for that. Real praise builds you up. This kind of praise makes you question yourself. Second, listen for the hidden message. If a compliment contains an expectation, an assumption, or a mild insult, it's probably not a compliment at all. Third, don't take the bait. If you get a backhanded compliment, don't rush to explain yourself or prove them wrong. You don't owe them anything. If they say, "I never thought you could do this," just respond with, "That's because you don't know me well enough." And finally, call it out when necessary. If someone constantly undermines you with fake compliments, address it directly. "I appreciate the compliment, but I don't need the surprise. I always knew I could do it." Because once you stop seeking validation from people who secretly want to see you doubt yourself, their words lose their power. Damning with faint praise works because it makes you feel like the problem is you, like you should be grateful for any recognition at all. But once you recognize it for what it is, you stop falling for it. So the next time someone gives you a compliment that doesn't feel quite right, ask yourself, are they really lifting me up? Or are they just trying to make me question myself? Because the moment you recognize the trick, it stops working. The false dilemma: you're faced with a choice. Maybe it's a decision about your future, your relationships, or your beliefs. Someone presents you with two options, one good, one bad. You're either with us or against us. Either you support this or you're part of the problem. If you don't do this, then you'll regret it forever. The message is clear: there is no middle ground, no alternatives, no third option. And because of this, the decision feels urgent, absolute, and final. But what if neither option is right? What if the truth lies somewhere in between? This is the false dilemma, a dark psychology trick designed to make people believe there are only two choices, even when other possibilities exist. It forces you into a black and white mindset, making you ignore alternatives, nuance, and critical thinking. And once someone controls the way you see the choices, they control the choice you make. It happens in relationships. A toxic partner wants control. Instead of allowing discussion, they trap you in extremes. Either you love me, or you don't care about me at all. Either you agree with me, or you don't support this relationship. Either you stay, or you're abandoning me. They remove all compromise, all room for discussion, and suddenly, you feel like you only have two options. It happens in workplaces. A manipulative boss wants you to take on more work, so they present an artificial choice. Either you put in extra hours, or you don't care about your career. Either you do this task, or you're not a team player. Either you accept this deal, or you'll lose the opportunity forever. But what about other options? A compromise, a renegotiation, a different approach. Those options exist, but they've been erased from the conversation. It happens in politics. A government, media outlet, or organization wants public support. Either you support this law, or you don't care about public safety. Either you agree with us, or you're on the wrong side of history. Either you vote for this, or everything will fall apart. But life isn't black and white. There are always more than two choices. It happens in personal decisions. A friend, parent, or authority figure forces a false choice on you. Either you go to college, or you'll fail in life. Either you follow this career path, or you'll never be successful. Either you do this now, or you'll regret it forever. And just like that, you feel trapped, because once you believe there are only two choices, you stop looking for alternatives. And that's exactly how manipulators control your decisions. So why does the false dilemma work so well? Because of fear. When faced with a forced choice, especially when one option is clearly bad, people panic and choose the better option without stopping to think. Because of social pressure. If everyone around you is saying this is the only way, you start to believe it, especially if questioning it gets you ridiculed or rejected. Because of mental shortcuts. The brain likes simple answers. It doesn't want to spend time analyzing complexity. A forced black and white choice feels easier than considering a full spectrum of possibilities. And that's what manipulators count on. They know that most people will accept a limited choice, rather than question whether more choices exist. It's easier to think in extremes. It's easier to pick between A or B. It's easier to follow what everyone else is choosing. And that's why false dilemmas are so powerful. Because once people accept the limited options, they stop searching for better solutions. So how do you protect yourself from the false dilemma? First, recognize when you're being forced into two extreme choices. If someone says, it's either this or that, ask yourself, are these really the only two options? What alternatives aren't being mentioned? Who benefits from me seeing this as a black and white decision? Second, look for the missing middle ground. There are always more than two solutions. Maybe the answer lies somewhere in between. Maybe both choices are flawed, and a third option is better. Maybe you don't have to choose at all. If someone says, either you agree with me, or you're wrong, challenge it. What if I see both sides? If someone says, either you do this or you don't care, push back. What if I care, but I have a different approach? Third, don't let fear make your decisions. Manipulators use false dilemmas to rush you into choices that benefit them. If a decision feels urgent and extreme, pause, step back, think. Most major decisions don't need to be made instantly. And finally, trust your ability to think critically. The world isn't black and white. People aren't just good or bad. Decisions aren't just right or wrong. The truth isn't just this or that. In reality, most situations are complex. There are shades of gray, different perspectives, and alternative solutions. So when someone says, there's only one right choice, ask yourself, says who? If there's only one option, why do they need to push it so hard? If the truth is obvious, why are they trying to limit your choices? If there's no other way, why does it feel like they're hiding something? Because once you start asking these questions, you see through the illusion. And once you see through the illusion, you take back control of your choices. The illusory truth effect. You hear something once, and you're skeptical. That can't be right. That sounds made up. I don't think I believe that. But then, you hear it again, and again, and again, and over time, something changes. At first, you dismissed it. But now, it starts feeling familiar. And the more familiar something feels, the more likely you are to believe it. This is the illusory truth effect, a dark psychology trick that makes people believe false information simply because they've heard it before. It doesn't matter if it's true. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. The only thing that matters is repetition. Because the more you hear something, the more real it seems. And once something feels real, your brain stops questioning it. This is how lies become truth. It happens in media. A false story spreads online. At first, most people don't believe it. But then it keeps showing up. Different people post about it. It appears in different headlines. It gets repeated in conversations. And suddenly, people start thinking, well, if everyone is talking about it, maybe there's some truth to it. And just like that, a completely false narrative becomes accepted as fact. It happens in relationships. A manipulative partner constantly repeats certain ideas about you. You're too sensitive. You always overreact. You never appreciate me. At first, you push back. That's not true. But after hearing it over and over, you start to wonder, wait, am I really overreacting? Am I really too sensitive? And slowly, you start believing the lie. It happens in workplaces. A toxic boss subtly spreads an idea about an employee. I don't know if he's really leadership material. She's not the most reliable person. He just doesn't have the best work ethic. At first, no one believes it. But after hearing it enough times, people start accepting it as fact, even without proof. It happens in advertising. A brand keeps repeating the same phrase, "Our product is the best on the market. We're the #1 choice." More people trust us than any other brand, even if they never prove it, even if it's not actually true. The constant repetition makes people believe it. Because the human brain has a flaw. We mistake repetition for truth. If something sounds familiar, we assume we must have heard it before for a reason. And once it feels familiar, it feels true, even if it's completely false. This is why propaganda works. This is why misinformation spreads so easily. This is why people cling to false beliefs, even when presented with evidence to the contrary. Because once a belief feels true, people will fight to defend it. So why does this happen? Because the brain is lazy. It doesn't want to analyze every piece of information from scratch every time it hears it. Instead, it takes shortcuts. And one of the biggest shortcuts, if I've heard this before, it's probably true. It's a survival mechanism. In ancient times, recognizing patterns like poisonous plants, dangerous animals, or safe food sources helped humans survive. But in today's world, this same mechanism is being used against us. Because once something gets repeated enough, people stop questioning it. And manipulators know this. That's why politicians repeat the same talking points, even when they've been disproven. That's why conspiracy theories survive, even when they make no logical sense. That's why rumors and gossip spread, even when they're completely false, because the truth doesn't matter. Only repetition does. And the worst part, even when people find out that something they believed was false, the illusion of truth still lingers. The psychologists call this the continued influence effect. Even after we learn that information is false, our brains still hold on to it. That's why people say things like, "I know it's probably not true, but what if? I heard it so many times." It's hard not to believe it. I don't know why, but it just feels true. Because once a false belief is deeply rooted, it's incredibly hard to shake. So how do you protect yourself from the illusory truth effect? First, question everything. Even if it feels familiar, just because you've heard something before, doesn't mean it's true. Ask yourself, where did I first hear this? Is there actual proof behind this, or is it just repeated a lot? Second, look for contradictions. If you see the same statement everywhere, ask yourself, is there an opposing viewpoint that I haven't considered? Because real truth holds up against scrutiny. False information only survives when people stop questioning it. Third, don't assume that popularity equals truth. Just because a lot of people believe something doesn't mean it's correct. History is full of widely believed lies that turned out to be false. The earth was once known to be flat. People once believed bloodletting cured diseases. Entire populations were once convinced of false propaganda, because repetition creates belief, even when the belief is completely wrong. Finally, be careful what you repeat. Every time you share something, you're helping it become more true in people's minds. If you spread something false, you're not just misinforming others, you're reinforcing the lie. And that's exactly how false narratives gain power. So the next time you hear something over and over, ask yourself, do I believe this because it's true, or just because I've heard it so many times? Because once you recognize the illusory truth effect, you stop being manipulated by it. The door-in-the-face technique, it starts with a big, bold request, something that seems outrageous, excessive, or just too much.
Nay.
Can you lend me $1,000? Would you be willing to work weekends and late nights for free? Can you help me move all my furniture across town by yourself? You hear the request, and immediately, your answer is obvious. No way. But then they follow up with something smaller, something that now seems much more reasonable by comparison. Okay, I get it. Could you at least lend me $50? All right, just work a couple of extra hours this week. It's nothing major, no problem. Just help me move a few boxes instead. And suddenly, saying no feels harder. The second request feels so much smaller, more reasonable, almost like a compromise. And before you know it, you're agreeing to something you might not have said yes to before. This is a psychological manipulation known as the door-in-the-face technique, a trick designed to get people to agree to something by first asking for something much bigger. It works because of guilt and social pressure. When someone asks for a huge favor and you say no, you naturally feel a little bad, like you're rejecting them completely. So when they follow up with a smaller request, you feel obligated to meet them halfway. You think, well, I already said no to the first thing, maybe I should at least agree to this. And that's exactly how they trap you. It happens in sales. A car dealer tries to sell you the most expensive model first. This premium package with all the upgrades is $60,000. You say no, so they lower the offer. Okay, how about this model for $45,000? It still has great features. Now $45,000 doesn't seem as bad, because it's way less than the first price you heard. But what if they had just started at $45,000? Would it still have seemed like a good deal? It happens in workplaces. A boss asks you to take on an impossible amount of work. Can you manage this entire department's workload while also handling your usual tasks? You push back, so they adjust their request. Okay, I get it. Can you at least take on these extra 3 projects? Now, taking on 3 projects seems reasonable, because it's not as extreme as the original request. But what if they had just asked for the 3 projects first? Would you still have agreed? It happens in relationships. A partner asks for a huge compromise. I think you should quit your job so we can spend more time together. You say no, so they adjust the request. Fine, just take a few more days off each month for me. Now you feel like you're meeting them in the middle. But in reality, they manipulated the situation to make their real request seem smaller. It happens in negotiations. A company demands a huge budget. We need $5 million for this project. The other side pushes back, so they lower their request. All right, let's settle on $3 million. Now $3 million seems like a fair deal, even if it was their real goal all along. Because here's the thing, the first request was never meant to succeed. It was just a psychological trick to make the second request feel small by comparison. So why does this work so well? Because of the contrast effect. Our brains naturally compare options against what came before them. Something that seems unreasonable becomes acceptable when placed next to something far worse. And because of guilt, when someone lowers their demand, we feel obligated to meet them halfway. So how do you protect yourself from this manipulation? First, recognize the pattern. If someone asks for something outrageous and then suddenly scales it down, ask yourself, did I actually want this second option? Or does it just feel small compared to the first one? Second, don't feel guilty for saying no. Just because someone compromises doesn't mean you have to agree. You don't owe them a yes, just because you already said no once. Third, consider what you would have said if they started with the second request. If they had never asked for the big thing first, would you still say yes to the smaller one? If the answer is no, then it's still a no, no matter how they frame it. Finally, take control of the conversation. If someone tries to pull this trick on you, flip it around. I can't do either of those things. I'm not comfortable committing to anything right now. That doesn't work for me, regardless of the option. This stops the manipulator from setting the terms of the negotiation. Because once you recognize the door-in-the-face technique, you see it everywhere. Marketers use it, bosses use it, salespeople use it, manipulative partners use it. because it works, but only if you let it. So the next time someone makes a ridiculous request, ask yourself, is this really a good deal? Or am I just being tricked into thinking it is? Because once you stop falling for this trick, you take back control of your decisions. Time pressure manipulation. The clock is ticking. You're given a choice, but there's a catch. You have to decide right now. This deal won't last. You need to make a decision immediately. If you don't act fast, you'll regret it, and suddenly you feel trapped. You don't have time to think. You don't have time to weigh your options. You don't have time to figure out if this is really the right decision. All you know is that if you don't act now, you might miss out. And that fear, it pushes you into making a choice you might not have made otherwise. This is time pressure manipulation, a dark psychology trick designed to force people into rushed decisions by making them believe they have no time to think. It works because of panic and urgency. When time is running out, the brain prioritizes fast decisions over smart ones. And that's exactly what manipulators want, because the less time you have to think, the easier you are to control. It happens in sales and marketing. Limited time offers, flash sales, expiring discounts, only a few spots left. This deal disappears at midnight. Act now before it's too late. And suddenly, you're pulling out your wallet before you've even had time to ask if you actually want it. Because the moment scarcity is introduced, your brain switches into survival mode. You're no longer thinking about whether this is a good deal. You're just afraid of missing out. And that fear makes you act impulsively. It happens in relationships. A manipulative partner creates urgency, so you don't have time to question the relationship. We need to move in together right away. If you really love me, you'll make a decision now. Why are you hesitating? You should know what you want. Now, instead of making a careful choice, you feel pressured into commitment. Because if you don't act fast, they might leave. And that pressure makes you ignore red flags. It happens in workplaces. A boss or employer rushes you into decisions to keep you from negotiating. We need an answer today. Take it or leave it. This opportunity won't be available tomorrow. If you don't accept now, we'll have to move on to someone else. And suddenly, you're accepting terms that you might have rejected if you had more time to think. Because fear of losing the opportunity makes you settle for less. It happens in friendships. A toxic friend pressures you into things before you can process the consequences. We have to go now. Don't overthink it. Come on, just do it. It's now or never. If you don't do this, I'm going to be really disappointed. And instead of making a decision based on what's right for you, you make a decision to avoid the pressure. It even happens in high-stakes situations, like scams, fraud, and coercion. A scammer creates urgency, so you panic and don't think critically. Your account has been compromised. You must act now. If you don't pay immediately, legal action will be taken. This opportunity is closing fast. Don't miss out. And before you have time to analyze, question, or verify the situation, you comply. Because the fear of running out of time overrides logic. It even happens in manipulative governments and organizations. Fear campaigns push people into making decisions without time for debate. We need to act immediately, or society will collapse. If you don't comply right now, you'll be in danger. There's no time to discuss alternatives, just do what we say. And the more urgency is created, the less time people have to question motives. So why does time pressure manipulation work so well? Because the human brain is wired for urgency. When something is framed as a limited time decision, your mind focuses on the short-term risk instead of the long-term consequences. It forces you into reactive thinking rather than rational decision-making. And that's exactly what manipulators exploit. Because a rushed decision is almost always an uninformed one. So how do you protect yourself from time pressure manipulation? First, pause before making any decision. If someone is rushing you, ask yourself, why do I have to decide right now? What happens if I take more time to think? Am I making this choice because I want to, or because I feel pressured? Because the moment you slow down, you take back control. Second, call out the pressure. If someone is using urgency to manipulate you, say, I don't make rushed decisions. I need time to think. If this is a good opportunity today, it should still be a good opportunity tomorrow. If I can't have time to process this, I'm not interested. A genuine offer, opportunity, or relationship won't collapse just because you took time to think. A manipulative one will make you feel like waiting is a mistake. Third, remove the fear of missing out. If someone says this is your only chance, respond with, then I guess I'll have to miss it. Because the right opportunities won't need to rush you. Fourth, check how you feel. If you feel panicked, rushed, or anxious, that's a sign you're being manipulated. Good decisions come from clarity, not chaos. If someone is creating stress around a choice, they want you to act without thinking. Finally, understand this. A decision made under pressure isn't truly a decision, it's a reaction. A person who respects you will give you time to think. A person who values you won't force you into rushed commitments. A real opportunity won't disappear just because you needed a moment to process. So the next time someone tells you, you have to decide right now, ask yourself, do I, or do they just not want me to think about it? Because once you recognize time pressure manipulation, you stop being controlled by it. Hoovering, you finally escape. Maybe it was a toxic relationship, a manipulative friendship, or a controlling family member. After months, maybe even years, you gather the strength to walk away. You set boundaries, cut off contact, and start rebuilding your life. And then, out of nowhere, they come back. At first, it's small, a text, a call, a random like on social media. Hey, I've been thinking about you. I hope you're doing okay. I miss you. I just wanted to check in. I know things ended badly, but I just want to talk. It seems innocent, maybe even sincere, but deep down something feels off. Because you remember why you left. You remember the lies, the manipulation, the emotional exhaustion. You remember telling yourself, never again. But they're different now. At least, that's what they want you to believe. This is hoovering, a dark psychology trick designed to pull you back into a toxic relationship after you've escaped. It's named after a vacuum cleaner, because just like a vacuum, the manipulator is trying to suck you back in. And the worst part, it works, because hoovering plays on your emotions, memories, and unresolved guilt. You want to believe they've changed. You want to believe that the time apart made them realize what they lost. You want to believe that maybe, just maybe, things will be different this time. But it's not about change, it's about control. Hoovering follows a pattern. Step 1. The sweet apology. At first they're kind. They acknowledge the past, just enough to make you think they've learned. I know I hurt you, and I hate myself for it. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize what I lost. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I was too blind to see it. They say all the things you wished they had said before. They give you the closure you never got, but it's not real closure, it's bait. Because as soon as you engage, they have an opening. Step 2. The sudden urgency. Once they have your attention, they speed things up. Can we meet up, just to talk? I just need one last chance to explain. I know you're scared, but I swear this time is different. They don't want you to think. They don't want you to process. They just want you to react to their words, to their pain, to the version of them that they know you still care about. And if kindness doesn't work, step 3, the desperation and guilt. If you don't respond, they turn up the pressure. I don't know how to live without you. I'm falling apart. I need you. If you ever cared about me, just talk to me one last time. They make you feel responsible for their emotions. They use guilt as a weapon, because if you're a good person, how can you ignore someone in pain? But this isn't real pain. It's a performance, one designed to make you question yourself. And if that doesn't work, step 4, the sudden change in tactics. If kindness and guilt don't pull you back, they switch strategies. Maybe they try anger. I see how it is. You never really cared about me. Wow, I guess you're just as selfish as everyone said you were. I can't believe I wasted my time on you. Maybe they try jealousy. They suddenly start posting about how happy they are without you. Whether it's with a new partner, a new life, or new friends, they make sure you see it. They want you to feel like you're missing out. And if that doesn't work, they go back to playing the victim. I was just trying to fix things. I guess you really don't care. You're just going to throw away everything we had. I hope you're happy. You ruined me. At this point, you feel emotionally exhausted, because they aren't just pulling you in one direction, they're pulling you in every direction. Kindness, guilt, anger, victimhood, jealousy, whatever works. Because the truth is, they don't care which tactic succeeds. They just care about one thing pulling you back in. Why does hoovering work so well? Because it preys on unresolved emotions. If you miss them, they use nostalgia. If you hate them, they use guilt. If you pity them, they play the victim. If you ignore them, they create jealousy. No matter how you feel, they have a strategy for it. Because hoovering isn't about love, it's about power. They don't want to lose you, because losing you means losing control. How do you stop hoovering from working? First, recognize it for what it is. If someone is reaching out after hurting you, ask yourself, are they truly changing, or are they just trying to get me back? If their words sound too perfect, if their emotions feel scripted, if the timing seems suspicious, trust your gut. Second, do not engage. Hoovering only works if you respond. If you block them, ignore them, and refuse to play the game, they lose their power. Third, remind yourself why you left. Reread old messages. Write down everything they did to you. Remind yourself of the pain they caused, so you don't get caught in the illusion that things will be different. Because if they truly changed, they wouldn't have to manipulate you to come back. And finally, understand this. You don't owe them anything. Not a response, not a second chance, not closure. You don't have to save them. You don't have to comfort them. You don't have to explain why you're done, because they already know. They know why you left. They just don't want you to stay gone. So the next time someone tries to hoover you back into a toxic situation, ask yourself, do I really want to go back, or am I just being manipulated into thinking I do? Because the moment you see through the hoovering, you take back your power. Negging. You meet someone new. Maybe it's a date, a friend, a co-worker, or even a stranger at a social event. At first, they seem friendly, charming, even, but then they say something that catches you off guard. You're actually really smart for someone who looks like that. That outfit is bold. I wish I had your confidence to pull it off. You're cute, but I usually go for someone a little more sophisticated. It's not a direct insult. It's not outright rudeness. It's something subtle, a compliment with an edge. A small jab disguised as praise. At first, you brush it off. Maybe you even laugh. But something about it sticks in your mind. Wait, what did they mean by that? Are they flirting with me? Or are they making fun of me? Do I need to prove myself to them? And just like that, you're hooked. This is negging, a dark psychology trick designed to lower your self-esteem, just enough to make you seek validation from the person who insulted you. It's manipulation wrapped in charm, a psychological trap designed to make you chase the approval of the very person who just undermined you. Negging works because of one simple truth. People crave validation from those who withhold it. If someone insults you outright, it's easy to walk away. If someone flatters you openly, it's easy to accept. But when someone gives you just enough praise to keep you engaged, but withholds full approval, that's where the mind games begin. It happens in dating. A person wants control in the relationship, so they make their partner feel just insecure enough to try harder. You're pretty, but I usually date models. I love your confidence, even though your look isn't for everyone. You're sweet, but I usually go for more exciting people. Now instead of feeling valued, the other person feels like they need to prove themselves. They might dress differently, change their personality, or work harder for attention, just to earn that approval. It happens in friendships. A so-called friend constantly makes little digs at you, but always follows them up with "I'm just joking. You're actually smart when you try. Too bad you never do. Wow, I wish I could be as carefree as you, and not stress about looking put together." It's cute that you think you could pull that off, and even though it bothers you, you laugh it off, because that's what they expect. But over time, you start feeling smaller, less confident, more uncertain. It happens in workplaces. A co-worker or boss undermines your confidence just enough to keep you insecure, but dependent on their approval. You did a great job for someone with your level of experience. That idea isn't bad. I mean, it's not what I would have done, but it's interesting. I think you have potential. You're just not quite there yet. And now, instead of standing your ground, you work twice as hard to impress them. Negging even happens in social settings. A manipulator wants to get attention, so they make others feel just slightly off balance. They act like they're doing you a favor by giving you attention, as if you're lucky they even noticed you. You're actually really funny. I wasn't expecting that from you. I usually don't talk to people like you, but you seem cool. You're surprisingly interesting. I wouldn't have guessed. And suddenly you feel the need to prove yourself. So why does negging work? Because it preys on insecurity, even in the most confident people. When someone withholds full validation, it triggers a psychological response. You start wondering, Why don't they fully approve of me? Am I not enough? How can I make them see my value? And once you start seeking their approval, they have power over you. Negging is one of the most subtle and effective psychological tricks because it makes the victim feel like they're the one chasing approval, when in reality, they're being manipulated. So how do you protect yourself from negging? First, recognize it for what it is. If someone gives you a compliment that makes you feel worse instead of better, that's not a compliment, that's a control tactic. Second, call it out directly. If someone says, "You're pretty funny for someone like you," respond with, "What do you mean by that?" Force them to explain themselves. Most manipulators don't expect to be challenged. Third, don't play the game. If someone neggings you, don't seek their approval. Instead, take a step back and ask yourself why you would want validation from someone who just insulted you. And finally, remember this: people who truly respect you won't make you feel small. The right people in your life will lift you up, not make you doubt yourself. So the next time someone gives you a compliment that feels like an insult, ask yourself, are they really being nice, or are they just trying to make me seek their approval? Because once you stop falling for negging, you take back your confidence and your power. The phantom debt. You owe them something. At least, that's what they want you to believe. Maybe they did you a favor in the past, something small, something you didn't even ask for. Maybe they gave you advice, supported you, or helped you in a way that seemed insignificant at the time. Maybe they were just there for you when you were going through something, and now they expect something in return. After everything I've done for you, you can't even help me with this. I supported you when no one else did. Don't you think you owe me? I always put you first, and this is how you treat me. And suddenly you feel guilty, even though you never agreed to anything, even though you never asked for their help, even though you don't actually owe them anything. You start to believe you do. This is the phantom debt, a dark psychology trick used to make someone feel like they're indebted, even when no real debt exists. It's not just emotional manipulation, it's a form of control, because once someone convinces you that you owe them, you become easier to manipulate. It happens in relationships. A partner does favors for you, but later those favors become a form of leverage. I always put you first. Why can't you do the same for me? You wouldn't even be where you are today if it weren't for me. You're so ungrateful. I've given you everything, and you don't appreciate me. And now you feel obligated. You start giving up your own wants, your own needs, to repay a debt that was never real. It happens in friendships. A friend makes sacrifices for you, but only so they can use them against you later. I've always been there for you, and now you can't even do this one thing for me. You owe me after everything I've done for you. If you were a real friend, you wouldn't even hesitate, and suddenly your choices don't feel like your own anymore. Because every time you try to set a boundary, they remind you of how much they've done for you. It happens in workplaces. A boss or co-worker creates an artificial sense of obligation to make you work harder without expecting anything in return. I fought to get you this promotion, don't let me down. This company has done so much for you, and now you're just going to walk away. We invested in you. Now it's time for you to show loyalty. And now you're putting in extra hours, taking on more stress, because you feel like you owe them. Even though a job is a contract, not a favor. It happens in families. A parent sacrifices for their child, but later uses that sacrifice as a tool for control. I gave you life, and this is how you repay me. I worked so hard to give you everything. How could you be so selfish? After all I've done for you, the least you could do is listen to me. And now you feel guilty for having your own wants and needs. Even though a parent's love isn't supposed to be a debt, it even happens on a societal level. Governments, organizations, and institutions use phantom debt to create loyalty and obedience. We've provided for you, so you should be grateful and not question us. Without us, you wouldn't have what you have today. After everything we've done, the least you could do is support us. And the more people believe they owe something, the more willing they are to accept unfair conditions, even when they never actually agreed to any of it. So why does the phantom debt work so well? Because humans are wired for fairness. People naturally want to repay kindness. It's part of social bonding, and manipulators exploit that instinct by making people believe they owe something when they don't. Because once you feel like you're in debt, you start acting out of obligation, not choice. So how do you protect yourself from the phantom debt? First, recognize when someone is creating a false obligation. Ask yourself, Did I ever actually agree to owe them something? Did I ask for their help, or did they offer it freely? Would they have done this for me if they didn't expect something in return? Because real kindness doesn't demand repayment. Second, reject the guilt. If someone tries to guilt you by saying, "After everything I've done for you," you can respond with, "I never asked for that." If you gave freely, it shouldn't come with conditions. Or if your kindness comes with a price, then it was never really kindness. Because manipulation disguised as generosity is still manipulation. Third, set boundaries. Even with people who have helped you. If you feel pressured to repay someone in a way that makes you uncomfortable, say, "I appreciate what you did, but that doesn't mean I owe you control over my choices." A genuine person will respect that. A manipulator will fight against it, because their goal was never to help. Finally, understand this. Love, generosity, and support aren't meant to be weapons. Real kindness doesn't trap you in obligation. Real friendship doesn't use past favors as leverage. Real love doesn't make you feel guilty for setting boundaries. So the next time someone makes you feel like you owe them something, ask yourself, do I really owe them, or are they just making sure I believe I do? Because once you recognize the phantom debt, you stop being controlled by it. Triangulation. You notice a shift in someone's behavior toward you. Maybe it's a friend, a partner, a coworker, or even a family member. At first, everything seemed fine, but suddenly, they start acting distant, colder, less engaged. You can feel something is off, but when you ask about it, they deny anything is wrong. Then, out of nowhere, they bring up another person. "You know, Sarah never complains about this kind of thing. Mark said he doesn't think you're putting in enough effort. Other people have been telling me they feel the same way about you." And just like that, you feel insecure. You start wondering, am I not good enough? Are people talking about me behind my back? This is triangulation, a dark psychology trick designed to manipulate your emotions by introducing a third person into the dynamic. It's a method of control that keeps you off balance, questioning yourself, and seeking validation from the manipulator. The goal, to make you feel like you have competition, to make you feel like someone else is doing better, being treated better, or being trusted more than you. And worst of all, it works, because humans are wired to compare themselves to others. We don't want to feel like we're being replaced, excluded, or outperformed. And manipulators use that fear against us. It happens in relationships. A toxic partner brings up an ex or a friend just enough to make you feel insecure. "I ran into my ex today. Crazy how great they're doing now. You know, other girls don't get so emotional over little things. I wish you were as fun and easygoing as Jake's girlfriend." Now, instead of feeling secure in the relationship, you feel like you have to compete. You start trying harder, becoming more agreeable, making sure you don't lose to this invisible threat. And that's exactly what they want. It happens in friendships. A friend suddenly starts acting distant. Then they casually mention another friend. "Oh, I was hanging out with Alex the other day, and we had the best time. Yeah, Jenna really understands me in a way most people don't. I don't know, it just feels like some people in my life really make an effort, and others don't." You weren't even in a competition, but now you feel like you're losing. Instead of questioning their behavior, you start wondering, am I a bad friend? Am I not doing enough? And just like that, you're working harder to win their approval. It happens in workplaces. A manipulative boss or coworker pits people against each other. "I don't know, Mark seems to be handling this workload just fine. I was talking to Susan, and she had a really different opinion about your work." Some people on the team feel like you're not pulling your weight. But who are these some people? Who actually said this? Most of the time, no one. The manipulator is using an imaginary third party to make you doubt yourself, feel pressured, and work harder to prove yourself. It happens in families. A parent might compare their children to control their behavior. "Why can't you be more like your sister? Your cousin always calls to check on me, but you don't." Other kids wouldn't talk back to their parents like this. And suddenly, you're seeking approval, trying to fix yourself, but there was never anything wrong with you in the first place. Triangulation even happens on a societal level. Politicians pit people against each other, saying other countries don't have this problem. Why can't we be more like them? Some people in this country are working harder than others. Look at how these two groups are at odds. Whose side are you on? And now, instead of questioning the system, people start questioning each other. So why does triangulation work so well? Because it creates insecurity. A confident person stands their ground. An insecure person works harder to gain approval. And manipulators know that the more you feel like you're competing for their approval, the more power they have over you. The worst part, most of the time, the third person they bring up doesn't even know they're being used. The manipulator distorts reality, making you feel like you're being compared, even when no real comparison exists. So how do you stop triangulation from affecting you? First, recognize the pattern. If someone constantly brings up other people in a way that makes you feel small, question it. Ask yourself, are they sharing this to inform me or to manipulate me? Second, don't play the game. If someone says other people think you're not doing enough, ask them who exactly said that. Most of the time they won't have an answer. If someone says Mark is so much more hardworking, respond with good for Mark. That has nothing to do with me. By refusing to take the bait, you break the cycle. Third, trust your own worth. You don't need to compete for validation. You don't need to prove yourself just because someone introduces an invisible rival. Because the moment you realize that you were never in competition in the first place, triangulation loses its power over you. So the next time someone tries to make you feel like you're not enough, compared to someone else, ask yourself, am I really not enough? Or is this just a tactic to make me doubt myself? Because once you stop seeking approval, the manipulator loses control. The pity play, you know someone who always seems to be struggling. No matter what happens, they are the victim. Maybe it's a friend who always has drama, a partner who never takes responsibility, a co-worker who finds a way to avoid blame, a family member who constantly needs help, but never seems to help themselves. At first you feel bad for them, you offer support, you listen, you try to help. But over time something feels off. No matter how much you do for them, it's never enough. No matter what goes wrong, it's never their fault. No matter how many second chances they get, they always find a way to be the victim. This is the pity play, a dark psychology trick designed to manipulate others by weaponizing sympathy. It's a way to evade responsibility, gain favors, and keep control without ever looking like the bad guy. And the worst part, it works. Because people hate seeing others suffer. When someone appears helpless, struggling, or in pain, our natural instinct is to help. But what if their suffering is just a tool? The pity play isn't about real hardship. It's about using the appearance of hardship to get what they want. It happens in relationships. A toxic partner does something hurtful. Maybe they cheat, lie, or betray your trust. When you confront them, instead of apologizing, they flip the script. I've just been under so much stress lately. I don't know why I do these things. You know my past trauma. I can't control myself sometimes. I hate myself for what I did. I feel like such a terrible person. Now, instead of being angry, you feel sorry for them. You tell yourself, they didn't mean it. They're struggling. Maybe I should be more understanding. And just like that, you forgive them, even when you shouldn't. It happens in friendships. You have a friend who always needs help. Financially, emotionally, or socially. At first you help because you care, but after a while, you start to notice a pattern. They never take responsibility. They always have an excuse. And when you try to set boundaries, they guilt trip you with their suffering. I guess I just have to figure this out on my own. Like always. No one ever supports me, but I'm always there for everyone else. You're so lucky to have a stable life. You don't know what it's like to struggle. Now, you feel like a bad friend, even though all you did was protect your own well-being. It happens in families. A parent who failed their child refuses to admit their mistakes. Instead, they make themselves the victim. I did the best I could. Do you have any idea how hard my life was? You don't appreciate anything I did for you. You think I'm the bad guy, but you don't know the whole story. Instead of acknowledging the damage they caused, they use their past pain to erase your present pain. It happens in workplaces. A manipulative boss or co-worker avoids criticism by playing the victim whenever they're confronted. I've been dealing with so much pressure. I can't handle another problem right now. You don't know how hard I work. I barely sleep trying to keep this company together. I guess I'm just never good enough for you guys. Now, instead of holding them accountable, you feel guilty for even bringing it up. The pity play is even used by con artists, criminals, and abusers. Scammers pretend to be struggling single parents, sick family members, or innocent victims of tragedy just to get money. Abusive people tell sob stories about their own past trauma, so their victims feel too guilty to leave them. Corrupt leaders and institutions paint themselves as being under attack, so that people defend them instead of questioning their actions. Because here's the dark truth. People who use the pity play don't actually want help. They don't want to grow, improve, or take accountability. They want sympathy without change. They want forgiveness without consequences. They want control without looking like they're in control. And the best way to do that, make you feel like you're hurting them if you stop giving. So how do you recognize and stop the pity play? First, ask yourself, are they actually a victim, or do they just want to be? Real victims want solutions. They take responsibility for their part. They try to move forward. Pity players want attention. They avoid responsibility. They stay stuck in their suffering because it gives them power over others. Second, notice if their problems ever get solved. If someone is always struggling, always in crisis, always a victim, ask yourself, why haven't they tried to fix anything? Because the truth is, they don't want to. Third, pay attention to how they react when you stop enabling them. If you set a boundary, do they respect it, or do they lash out? If they genuinely needed help, they would accept what you can offer and respect your limits. But if they only wanted control, they'll try to make you feel guilty for walking away. Finally, remember, it is not your job to save someone who refuses to help themselves. No amount of sympathy will fix a problem that someone doesn't actually want to fix. No amount of emotional support will change someone who is committed to being the victim. And no amount of guilt should make you sacrifice yourself for someone who only takes. So the next time someone plays the pity card, ask yourself, are they really suffering, or are they just using their suffering to manipulate me? Because once you stop falling for their act, you take back your power. The manipulative apology. It starts with two simple words. I'm sorry, but something feels off. Maybe they don't sound genuine. Maybe they say it too quickly, as if just trying to shut down the conversation. Maybe their tone feels empty, like they're saying it because they have to, not because they mean it. And then before you even have time to process their apology, they twist it. I'm sorry, but you know I didn't mean it that way. I'm sorry you felt that way. I'm sorry, but you really should have handled that better. And suddenly their apology isn't really an apology at all. Instead of taking responsibility, they've shifted the blame, minimized the issue, or made you feel guilty for bringing it up. This is the manipulative apology, a dark psychology trick used to avoid accountability while still making it seem like they've apologized. It's not just a bad apology, it's a way to silence you, control the narrative, and make you doubt your own feelings. And once you accept it, the cycle repeats. It happens in relationships. A toxic partner pretends to apologize, but the way they do it makes you feel like you're the problem. I'm sorry, but you always take things the wrong way. I guess I'll just never do anything right in your eyes. Fine, I'm sorry, happy now. Now instead of feeling heard, you feel like you overreacted. And suddenly, you're the one apologizing to them. It happens in friendships. A manipulative friend says sorry, not to fix things, but to shut you up. I said I'm sorry. Why are we still talking about this? I guess I'm just the worst friend ever, huh? I apologized, but honestly, I don't even think I did anything wrong. Now instead of working through the issue, you feel like you're being difficult for not just letting it go. It happens in workplaces. A boss or co-worker uses a fake apology to keep the power dynamic in their favor. I'm sorry if you misunderstood what I said. I didn't mean to offend you, but you need to be less sensitive. I'm sorry you feel that way, but we have bigger things to worry about. Now, instead of holding them accountable, you feel like you're being unreasonable for even bringing it up. It happens in families. A parent or relative apologizes in a way that makes you feel guilty for being upset. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were so sensitive. I'm sorry, but you know how hard I've worked for this family. I said I'm sorry. Why are you still upset? Now instead of processing your emotions, you feel like you're being unfair to them. It even happens on a larger scale. Public figures, companies, or governments use manipulative apologies to avoid real consequences. We're sorry if anyone was offended. Mistakes were made, but we've learned from them. We apologize for any misunderstanding. And just like that, they avoid accountability while making it seem like they've taken responsibility. So why does the manipulative apology work so well? Because it creates confusion and self-doubt. Instead of making you feel validated, it makes you question yourself. Am I overreacting? Did I take it the wrong way? Should I just let it go? And that's exactly what manipulators want. Because the more you doubt your own feelings, the easier it is for them to control the situation. So how do you protect yourself from manipulative apologies? First, pay attention to the language. A real apology sounds like "I'm sorry for what I did. I understand that it hurt you, and I take full responsibility." A manipulative apology sounds like "I'm sorry if you were offended. I'm sorry, but I didn't mean it that way. I already apologized. What more do you want?" If the apology includes excuses, blame shifting, or dismissiveness, it's not a real apology. Second, trust your emotions. If you still feel upset, unheard, or invalidated, it means the apology didn't resolve the issue. You have the right to expect a real conversation. You have the right to ask for accountability. You have the right to set boundaries, even after someone says. Third, don't let them rush you into forgiveness. A real apology doesn't demand immediate forgiveness. If someone says, "I said I'm sorry, why are you still upset?" You can say, "An apology doesn't automatically fix everything. I need time to process this," because your emotions are valid, no matter how much they try to dismiss them. Finally, understand this: a real apology isn't just words, it's action. It's acknowledging the harm done. It's taking responsibility without excuses. It's making an effort to change. If someone keeps apologizing but never changing, they're not really sorry. They just want to reset the cycle, so they can hurt you again. So the next time someone gives you an apology that doesn't feel right, ask yourself, are they actually sorry, or do they just want me to stop holding them accountable? Because once you recognize the manipulative apology, you stop falling for it. Passive discouragement. You're excited about something. Maybe it's a goal, a new relationship, a job opportunity, or a creative project. You're ready to take action, to push forward, to make things happen. But then someone says something. Not an outright insult, not direct criticism, but something subtle, something that makes you pause, hesitate, second guess yourself. "Oh, that sounds ambitious. Are you sure you can handle that? I mean, I guess that could work, but it's risky, right? That's cool. But isn't there already a lot of competition?" They don't tell you not to do it. They don't tell you you'll fail. They just plant a small seed of doubt and then let your own mind do the rest. This is one of the most effective ways to stop someone from chasing their dreams without looking like the bad guy. Instead of tearing you down directly, they gently steer you away from what you want, using doubt, hesitation, and false concern to make you pull back on your own. Why is this so dangerous? Because it doesn't feel like an attack. When someone openly criticizes you, it's easy to recognize. You can push back, defend yourself, or ignore them. But when the doubt is disguised as concern, it's harder to detect. At first you brush it off, but as time passes, their words linger in your mind. Maybe I am being too ambitious. Maybe I should wait until I'm more prepared. Maybe they're right. It's probably not worth the risk. And before you know it, you stop yourself. It happens in relationships. You're excited about a new passion, hobby, or career change. You share it with your partner, expecting support. Instead of encouragement, they give you hesitation disguised as concern. That's really interesting. But do you think you have the time for that? I mean, I love that for you, but aren't you already overwhelmed? I totally support you. I just don't want you to get your hopes up. Now, instead of feeling encouraged, you feel uncertain. Are they looking out for you, or are they subtly keeping you from growing? It happens in workplaces. An employee wants to take on a leadership role, start a project, or go after a promotion. They mention it to a coworker or boss, hoping for encouragement. Instead they hear, "That's a big move. You sure you're ready for that? I mean, it's a great opportunity, but it's a lot of responsibility. I'd love to see you go for it. Just be careful, it's really competitive." The message is clear. They don't think you're ready, but instead of outright rejection, they frame it as concern, and suddenly you start doubting yourself. It happens in families. A young adult wants to travel, pursue a creative career, or take a path different from what their family expects. Instead of support, they hear, "That's amazing, but what's your backup plan? I love that for you. Just make sure you're being realistic. I mean, do people actually make a living doing that?" And just like that, they begin questioning their own dreams, not because they failed, but because someone else made them afraid to try. It even happens on a societal level. Communities are told they shouldn't expect too much. Employees are told they should be grateful for what they have. People who want change are told they're asking for too much. And little by little, they stop pushing forward, not because they were stopped, but because they were discouraged just enough to give up. It works because it doesn't feel like an attack. Instead of pushing you back, it makes you hesitate. Instead of rejecting your idea, it makes you doubt yourself. Instead of stopping you outright, it makes you stop yourself. And that's the most effective form of control, when you don't even realize it's happening. If someone always responds to your ideas, dreams or ambitions with hesitation, doubt or concern, they're not just being realistic, they're discouraging you. Just because someone else is afraid doesn't mean you have to be. Ask yourself, do I actually doubt myself? Or am I just absorbing their fear? Are they really concerned for you? Or are they afraid of what your success would mean for them? Maybe they don't want you to succeed because it will make them feel left behind. Maybe they're projecting their own insecurities onto you. Maybe they just don't want to see you grow because they like you where you are. If someone passively discourages you, don't argue, just move forward. Instead of justifying yourself, say I appreciate your concern, but I'm doing this anyway, or simply stop telling them your plans. Some people don't deserve access to your dreams, especially if they're only going to plant doubt in them. Passive discouragement works only if you let it. The moment you recognize it, you take back your power. If you think about it, how many times have you stopped yourself from doing something because someone made you hesitate? How many ideas, dreams and ambitions have been left unfinished, not because you weren't capable, but because someone made you question yourself just enough that you pulled back? The truth is, the most successful people in the world aren't necessarily the smartest, the most talented, or the luckiest. They're the ones who refuse to let doubt win. They don't wait for permission, they don't ask for approval, they don't let someone else's fear stop them from taking action. That's the difference between those who make things happen and those who never even try. And the people who discourage you, they aren't trying to protect you, they're protecting themselves. Because your success challenges their comfort. Your ambition makes them face their own lack of effort. Your courage makes them realize they've been too afraid to try. So they try to keep you where they are, stuck, but you don't have to listen. So the next time someone responds to your ambition with doubt, ask yourself, are they actually looking out for me? Or are they just afraid I'll prove them wrong? Because once you stop letting others project their fears onto you, you become unstoppable. Sabotage through doubt. You wake up one morning feeling good, you're motivated, you have goals to accomplish, things to get done. You start your day feeling like nothing can stop you, and then someone says something. Maybe it's a snide remark, a passive-aggressive comment, or just a subtle jab disguised as a joke. Wow, you're really going to wear that? Must be nice to have all that free time. Oh, you think you can actually do that? Good luck with that. At first, you brush it off, but as the day goes on, their words stick in your mind. You replay the conversation, you start to question yourself, your mood changes, and suddenly, you don't feel as confident as you did before. This is sabotage through doubt, a dark psychology trick that makes people second-guess themselves, hesitate, and ultimately give up on their goals. And the worst part, it's often done so subtly that you don't even realize it's happening. Doubt is one of the most powerful weapons in manipulation. It doesn't need to be loud, it doesn't need to be aggressive, it just needs to plant a small seed in your mind. Because once that seed is there, you'll do the rest of the work yourself. This trick is used everywhere, by toxic friends, manipulative partners, controlling bosses, and even family members who don't want to see you succeed. It happens in relationships. A person is excited about a new opportunity, a job, a creative project, a fitness journey. They share it with their partner, expecting support. But instead of encouragement, they get, "You, really? I just don't see you as the kind of person who does that. Are you sure? That sounds risky. Maybe you should think it through more. I mean, it's great that you have a dream, but be realistic." The message is clear. You're not capable. You're not good enough. At first they try to shake it off, but over time, those words sink in. The excitement fades. They start doubting themselves, and eventually, they give up. And the person who planted that doubt, they never had to directly stop them. They just made them question themselves enough that they stopped on their own. It happens in workplaces. An employee is ambitious, hardworking, ready to take on bigger challenges, but their boss or co-workers see them as a threat, So instead of helping them grow, they undermine them. I don't know if you're really leadership material. Are you sure you're ready for that promotion? It's a lot of pressure. I mean, you're good at what you do, but don't get ahead of yourself. And so the employee hesitates. They stop putting themselves out there. They start thinking, maybe I'm not ready. And just like that, their ambition is neutralized. It happens in families. A child wants to pursue a passion, art, music, sports, a career path that excites them. But instead of support, they hear that's not a real job. You'll never make money doing that. Be practical, stick to what's safe. And over time, they internalize those doubts. They give up their dreams, not because they wanted to, but because someone else convinced them they couldn't succeed. It even happens on a societal level. Communities are told they aren't capable. Workers are told they shouldn't expect more. People in power plant doubt in the minds of the public so that they don't rise up, ask for better, or challenge the system. Because when people doubt themselves, they become easier to control. So why does this trick work? Because doubt is paralyzing. A confident person takes action. A doubtful person hesitates. A hesitant person misses opportunities. And the more someone doubts themselves, the less likely they are to try. Doubt makes you overthink instead of act. Doubt makes you seek validation instead of trusting yourself. Doubt makes you give up before you even start. And manipulators know this. They don't have to force you to fail. They just have to make you question yourself enough that you stop moving forward. So how do you protect yourself? First, recognize the pattern. If someone always responds to your excitement with doubt, hesitation, or negativity, they're not just being realistic, they're sabotaging you. Second, separate their doubts from your reality. Just because someone else doesn't believe in you, doesn't mean they're right. Ask yourself, do I actually doubt myself? Or am I just absorbing their negativity? Third, protect your dreams. Not everyone deserves to hear your plans. If you notice certain people always making you second-guess yourself, stop sharing your goals with them. Fourth, take action, despite the doubt. Confidence isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. The best way to silence doubt is to prove it wrong through action. Finally, trust yourself. The people who doubt you, they're just afraid that you'll outgrow them, afraid that you'll succeed where they failed, afraid that you'll prove them wrong. So the next time someone plants a seed of doubt in your mind, ask yourself, is this my fear, or is this their fear projected onto me? Because once you stop letting others control your confidence, you become unstoppable. The procrastination trap. You tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow. Maybe it's starting that project you've been thinking about. Maybe it's leaving that toxic relationship. Maybe it's making that career move, hitting the gym, or finally addressing something that's been bothering you for months. You know it needs to be done. You know that delaying it only makes things worse, but still, you wait. I'll do it when I feel more ready. Now's just not the right time. I'll start when things settle down. And just like that, days turn into weeks. Weeks turn into months. Months turn into years. This is the procrastination trap. One of the most powerful psychological tricks that keeps people stuck in inaction, not because they don't want to change, but because they convince themselves they'll do it later. But here's the dark truth. Later never comes. Procrastination isn't just about laziness or lack of motivation. It's a form of self-sabotage. It's your brain's way of protecting you from discomfort, fear, and uncertainty. And the worst part, the longer you delay something, the harder it becomes to start. You might think you're just giving yourself time, but in reality, you're building resistance. The more you put something off, the bigger it feels. The longer you wait, the more pressure you create. The more you delay action, the more your brain convinces you that it's too overwhelming to begin. It happens with dreams and ambitions. People talk about their goals for years, but never take the first step. I want to start a business, but I need to learn more first. I've always wanted to write a book, but I'm just waiting for the right time. I want to get in shape, but I'll start next month. But next month becomes next year, and next year becomes never. It happens in relationships. Someone knows their relationship is unhealthy. They feel drained, disrespected, or unfulfilled, but instead of leaving, they keep waiting. I'll end it after the holidays. Now's not the right time. We have too much history. Maybe things will change if I just give it more time. And so they waste years in something that should have ended long ago. It happens in careers. People stay in jobs they hate, promising themselves they'll quit once things get better. Once they find something else, once they feel more prepared. But they never start looking, and before they know it, they've been stuck for a decade. It even happens with simple daily tasks. You know you need to send that email, make that phone call, clean that mess, but you tell yourself, it can wait, and then you forget about it, or you rush at the last minute, stressed and anxious. Because here's what procrastination really does. It doesn't make life easier, it makes life harder. It turns small tasks into mountains. It turns temporary problems into long-term stress. It turns dreams into regrets. And the scariest part, most people procrastinate their entire lives away. They wait for the perfect time to start. They wait for motivation to magically appear. They wait for the stars to align. But there is no perfect time. There is no perfect moment. There is only now. So how do you break free from the procrastination trap? First, stop waiting to feel ready. You won't. You're never going to wake up one day and suddenly feel 100% prepared. Action comes before motivation, not the other way around. The moment you take that first step, your brain shifts into action mode. Second, commit to the 2-minute rule. If something will take less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Instead of telling yourself, I'll do it later, tell yourself, I'll do it now. 2 minutes can start a chain reaction. Once you begin, it's easier to keep going. Third, give yourself a deadline. Open-ended goals never get done. Instead of saying, I'll start working out soon, say, I will go to the gym on Monday at 6 p.m. Instead of saying, I need to look for a new job, say, I will apply to 3 jobs this week. Deadlines create urgency, and urgency creates action. Fourth, stop overthinking. Most procrastination isn't about time, it's about fear. Fear of failure, fear of imperfection, fear of stepping outside your comfort zone. But here's the thing, the longer you overthink, the harder it becomes to act. The solution, just start. Even if it's messy, even if it's small, even if it's imperfect, because movement creates momentum. And finally, remind yourself what's at stake. Every time you procrastinate, you are robbing your future self. You're stealing opportunities, success, growth, and happiness from the person you could become. So ask yourself, is this really worth delaying? Do I want to live my life as a person who waits, or as a person who takes action? Because once you break free from the procrastination trap, your entire life changes. So don't wait until tomorrow. Start now. Escalation of commitment. You work hard for something. Maybe it's a relationship, a job, a project, or a personal goal. You put in the effort, the time, the dedication, and then things start to go wrong. Maybe your relationship is falling apart. Maybe your job is draining you. Maybe your project isn't working out. But instead of stepping back and reevaluating, you double down. I just need to try harder. I can't stop now. I've already come this far. If I quit, it will all have been for nothing. And so, you keep investing more and more, even though the warning signs are clear. This is escalation of commitment, a dark psychology trick that keeps people stuck in losing battles, not because they still believe in what they're doing, but because they feel too invested to walk away. It's why people stay in toxic relationships long after the love is gone. It's why people keep pursuing failing business ideas instead of pivoting. It's why leaders continue bad policies instead of admitting they were wrong. Because the more we've invested, the harder it is to stop. Escalation of commitment happens because of 2 powerful psychological forces. Loss aversion, the idea that people feel the pain of losing twice as strongly as they feel the joy of gaining. Cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that happens when our actions don't match our beliefs. And together, they create a powerful trap. Let's say you start a business. At first, things are exciting. You're passionate, driven, and hopeful. But after a year, you start losing money. At this point, you have 2 options. Accept the losses, cut your ties, and move on. Keep investing in the hope that things will turn around. Most people choose the second option, not because it's logical, but because quitting feels like failure. I've already put so much into this. I can't give up now. But the more they invest, the harder it is to leave. It happens in relationships. Someone is in a toxic relationship, but instead of leaving, they keep trying to make it work, because they've already put in years of effort. I've spent so much time with this person, I don't want to throw it all away. Maybe if I just try harder, things will get better. I've already sacrificed so much, leaving now would make it all pointless. But staying in something unhealthy doesn't make the past effort worth it. it just makes you waste more. It happens in jobs. An employee hates their job. They're stressed, exhausted, and unhappy. But instead of looking for something better, they convince themselves to stay. I've already been here for 5 years. I can't just start over. If I leave now, I'll lose everything I've built. Maybe if I just push through, things will improve. But deep down, they know it won't. And the longer they stay, the harder it becomes to leave. It happens in politics and leadership. A government starts a war, a company launches a failing product, a leader pushes a bad policy. Even when it's clear that things aren't working, instead of stopping, they double down. We've already spent too much money to back out now. Changing course would make us look weak. We just need to keep pushing. It will pay off eventually. But instead of fixing the problem, they make it worse. And here's the scariest part. Escalation of commitment works best on intelligent, hard-working people. Because the more effort someone puts into something, the more they want to believe it was worth it. Manipulators know this, and they use it to their advantage. Toxic partners make you feel like you've invested too much to leave. Shady businesses keep you spending more to unlock the next level of success. Corrupt leaders convince people that changing course would mean admitting defeat. And before you know it, you're trapped. So how do you break free? First, ask yourself, if I weren't already invested in this, would I choose it today? Would you still choose that job, that relationship, that project, if you weren't already tied to it? If the answer is no, that's a sign that you're only staying because of past investment. Second, flip your mindset. Instead of thinking, I can't quit, I've already invested so much, tell yourself, if I keep going, I'll just waste even more. Third, look at the facts, not your emotions. Your feelings will tell you to keep going, because quitting hurts. But logic will tell you that sticking with something bad doesn't make it better. And finally, remember this, letting go isn't failure. The real failure is wasting more time, energy, and resources on something that isn't working. So the next time you feel trapped in a situation, ask yourself, am I continuing this because I believe in it, or because I'm afraid to let go? Because once you stop throwing good energy after bad, you finally set yourself free. Guilt gifting. It starts with a surprise, a gift, out of nowhere. Maybe it's small, maybe it's expensive, maybe it's something deeply personal. I saw this and thought of you. I just wanted to do something nice for you. You deserve this. At first, it feels genuine, thoughtful, even touching. But then, something changes. Maybe they start bringing it up in conversations. Maybe they start reminding you how much they've done for you. Maybe they start expecting things in return. And suddenly, that gift isn't just a gift anymore. It's a debt. This is guilt gifting, a dark psychology trick used to manipulate, control, and create obligation by making someone feel guilty for receiving kindness. It's not just generosity. It's not just thoughtfulness. It's a psychological tool designed to make you feel like you owe them something. And once you feel indebted, you become easier to control. It happens in relationships. A partner gives expensive gifts, grand gestures, and favors without asking. I booked us a weekend getaway. I got you something special, just because I love you. I spent hours planning this for you. At first, it seems romantic, but later, if you try to set a boundary, say no, or do something they don't like, they weaponize the gift. After everything I do for you, this is how you treat me. I gave you so much, and you can't even do this one thing. I guess I just care more about you than you care about me. Now you feel guilty, like you owe them something. And that guilt makes it harder to say no. It happens in friendships. A friend constantly pays for things, helps you out, and does favors without being asked. I got you lunch, don't worry about it. I'm always here when you need me. I helped you out so much last time, remember? But later, when they want something from you, suddenly, you're expected to repay the favor. I always support you. Why can't you do this for me? I never ask for anything, but when I do, you say no. I guess I just care more about this friendship than you do. And suddenly, saying no feels wrong, because they've convinced you that you're ungrateful if you don't comply. It happens in families. A parent provides financial support, housing, or emotional care, but with hidden expectations. After everything I've done for you, you can't even visit more often. I sacrificed so much for you, and you're just going to leave. I gave you everything. How could you be so selfish? Now instead of feeling loved, you feel trapped. You feel like you can't set boundaries, because doing so means betraying their sacrifices. It happens in workplaces. A boss or co-worker gives you special treatment, extra perks, or professional favors. I fought to get you this opportunity. I went out of my way to put in a good word for you. I made sure you got that raise, just remember that. But later, when they ask for something unreasonable, they expect repayment. I helped you, now you owe me. I scratched your back, now scratch mine. After everything I've done for you, don't let me down. And now, saying no feels impossible, because rejecting their request feels like betrayal. Guilt gifting even happens on a societal level. Governments, organizations, and institutions use it to control behavior. We gave you security, and now you need to obey. You should be grateful for what we provide. Don't ask for more. After all we've done for you, don't you think you should be loyal? And the more people feel indebted, the less likely they are to challenge authority, question decisions, or demand change. So why does guilt gifting work so well? Because humans are wired to feel reciprocal obligation. When someone gives us something, we naturally want to give something back. And manipulators exploit this instinct by giving gifts with hidden strings attached. They don't expect gratitude. They don't expect appreciation. They expect control. So how do you protect yourself from guilt gifting? First, recognize when gifts come with expectations. If someone constantly brings up what they've done for you, ask yourself, was this really a gift, or was it an investment? Real gifts don't come with guilt. Real kindness doesn't expect repayment. Real generosity doesn't make you feel trapped. Second, set boundaries, even with kindness. If someone keeps giving without your consent, you can say, I appreciate it, but I don't feel comfortable accepting this. I don't want to feel like I owe you anything. I'd rather we keep things equal between us. A genuine person will respect that. A manipulator will get defensive, because their real goal was control. Third, reject the guilt. If someone says, after everything I've done for you, you won't do this, you can say, I never asked for those things. If you gave them freely, they shouldn't come with conditions. Or kindness isn't a contract. You don't get to control me just because you helped me. And finally, understand this. Love, generosity, and support aren't meant to be weapons. A real gift should make you feel appreciated, not obligated. A real favor should make you feel grateful, not guilty. A real act of kindness should make you feel valued, not trapped. So the next time someone gives you something, and later expects obedience, loyalty, or sacrifice in return, ask yourself, was this ever really a gift, or was it just a leash? Because once you recognize guilt gifting, you stop being controlled by it. Intermittent reinforcement, you never know what to expect. One day, they're kind, affectionate, and supportive. The next, they're distant, cold, or even cruel. One moment, they praise you, showering you with attention. The next, they ignore you completely. Sometimes, they respond to your text right away. Other times, they leave you waiting for hours or days. And just when you're ready to walk away, they pull you back in. They say exactly what you need to hear. They give you just enough love, just enough warmth, just enough hope to make you stay. This is intermittent reinforcement, one of the most powerful psychological tricks used to create addiction, dependency, and emotional control. It works by rewarding you unpredictably, making your brain crave the reward even more because you never know when it's coming next. And that uncertainty, it keeps you hooked. It happens in relationships. A toxic partner switches between love and neglect. One day, they're saying you're the most amazing person in the world. I love you so much. The next, they're ignoring your calls, pushing you away, or treating you like you don't matter. Just when you start to lose hope, they come back. I don't know what I'd do without you. I've just been stressed. You mean everything to me. Let's just forget the bad times and focus on the good. And suddenly, you remember why you love them. You forget the pain, the confusion, the hurt, because you're chasing the high of the good moments. It happens in friendships. A friend is sometimes supportive, sometimes distant. One day, they're your biggest cheerleader. The next, they act like they don't care about you. But every time you start pulling away, they give you just enough attention to keep you close. I miss you. Let's hang out soon. And just like that, you forgive them. Because the good times make you doubt whether the bad times were really that bad. It happens in workplaces. A boss randomly gives praise or rewards, but never consistently. One day, they recognize your hard work. You're one of the best employees we have. The next, they act like you don't exist. But that one moment of approval makes you work even harder, hoping to get it again. Even when you're being overworked, undervalued, or treated unfairly, you stay. Because sometimes they reward you, and that keeps you chasing their validation. It happens in families. A parent switches between love and criticism. Sometimes they're proud of you. Sometimes they make you feel like you'll never be enough. But that random approval keeps you desperate to please them. Because even though you don't know when the reward is coming, you know that it will come eventually. And that's what makes intermittent reinforcement so dangerous, because it turns emotional pain into a game of chance. And once your brain starts playing, it doesn't want to stop. This is the same trick used in gambling addiction. Slot machines don't reward you every time. They reward you unpredictably, so that when you do win, it feels even more exciting. Your brain starts craving the next win, even though you have no control over when it happens. And before you know it, you're stuck in a cycle, pouring time, effort, and emotions into something that gives you just enough hope to keep going, but never enough consistency to feel secure. So why does intermittent reinforcement work so well? Because the human brain craves patterns. It wants to make sense of things. It wants to find predictability. It wants to believe that if you just try a little harder, the reward will come. And that's exactly how manipulators trap people. They make you believe that the love, the approval, the kindness is always just one step away. So you keep trying, you keep waiting, you keep hoping. Even when it hurts, even when it's unfair, even when you know you should walk away. So how do you break free from intermittent reinforcement? First, recognize the pattern. If someone only gives you love, attention, or approval at random times, especially after making you feel ignored, unwanted, or unworthy, that's not love, that's control. Second, stop chasing the reward. When you realize that the good moments are part of the manipulation, you can start seeing them for what they are, a trap. Good moments don't erase the bad ones. Love isn't supposed to be random. Respect isn't something you have to win. Third, create your own validation. Intermittent reinforcement works because it makes you seek validation from someone else. But once you stop relying on their approval, they lose their power over you. You don't need their random affection. You don't need their unpredictable kindness. You don't need to play their game, because you're no longer waiting for them to give you what you deserve. Finally, understand this: real love, real friendship, real respect isn't inconsistent. It doesn't make you feel anxious, confused, or desperate for attention. It doesn't make you feel like you have to earn basic kindness. It doesn't keep you guessing. So the next time someone pulls away, then pulls you back in, ask yourself, am I really in a healthy relationship, or am I just addicted to the next reward? Because once you see intermittent reinforcement for what it is, you stop playing the game. Forced dependency. It starts with help. At first it seems kind, almost too kind. Don't worry, I'll take care of it for you. You don't have to struggle, I'll handle everything. Just trust me. You don't need to deal with all that stress. And it feels good, comforting, safe. Who wouldn't want someone looking out for them? But slowly, something shifts. The help starts turning into control. The kindness starts feeling like a cage. And before you know it, you can't do anything without them. This is forced dependency, a dark psychology trick used to make someone completely reliant on another person so they can be controlled. It's not just generosity, it's not just protection, it's a strategy to take away your independence. So when they pull back, you have no choice but to stay. Because once they've convinced you that you need them, they own you. It happens in relationships. A toxic partner slowly takes over your responsibilities. You don't have to worry about money. I'll handle everything. You don't need a job. I like taking care of you. I'll drive you everywhere. You don't need to go out alone. At first it seems romantic, but then they start making you feel guilty for wanting independence. Why do you need a job? I thought we were happy like this. Why are you going out alone? I always take care of you. After everything I do for you, this is how you repay me. And suddenly, you feel trapped. You don't have money of your own. You don't have connections outside of them. You don't have the skills or resources to leave. So you stay. Not because you want to, but because you don't know how to survive without them. It happens in friendships. A friend always helps, but in ways that make you dependent on them. I'll help you move. Don't bother asking anyone else. You don't need to figure this out. I'll do it for you. I'm the only one who really understands you. But then the help comes with a price. I've done so much for you. Why aren't you more grateful? You wouldn't even know what to do without me. You owe me. After everything, I thought you'd be more loyal. Now you feel guilty for wanting space, because they've convinced you that without them, you'd be lost. It happens in workplaces. A boss creates dependency by making employees feel like they can't leave. You're lucky to have this job. Other companies won't treat you like this. I'll take care of you here. You don't need to look for anything else. We're like a family. You wouldn't want to abandon us, would you? Now instead of feeling valued, you feel trapped. You don't believe you can find better opportunities. You don't believe you can survive without them. You don't believe you have a choice. It happens in families. A controlling parent keeps their child dependent, even into adulthood. You don't need to move out. Just stay here where it's safe. You're not ready to be on your own. Let me handle things for you. You can't make it without my support. You'll just struggle out there. And because of this, the child never learns how to stand on their own. They stay financially, emotionally, and psychologically tied to the parent, because that's exactly what the parent wants. It even happens on a societal level. Governments, institutions, and systems create forced dependency by making people rely on them completely. They take away self-sufficiency. They remove options for independence. They make people believe that without them, survival is impossible. And once people believe that, they stop questioning, they stop resisting, they stop trying to escape, because they think they need the system to survive. Forced dependency is one of the most powerful forms of psychological control, because when someone removes your ability to survive without them, you don't choose to stay, you have no choice. So why does forced dependency work so well? Because it happens gradually. No one starts off feeling controlled. It begins with small favors, small sacrifices, small losses of independence, until one day, you wake up and realize you don't know how to function without them, because it exploits basic human needs. People like feeling taken care of. People like feeling supported. People like feeling like they don't have to struggle alone. And manipulators use that by making you feel safe and protected, before turning that safety into a prison. So how do you protect yourself from forced dependency? First, recognize the warning signs. If someone is always offering to take control of things for you, ask yourself, are they helping me or making me dependent? Second, keep your independence. Even when help is offered, it's okay to accept support, but never let someone take over completely. Keep your own finances, keep your own skills, keep your own support system, because the more you rely on only one person, the more power they have over you. Third, set boundaries before it's too late. If someone tries to make you feel guilty for being independent, that's a red flag. I appreciate your help, but I need to handle this myself. I don't want to rely on just one person for everything. I value your support, but I also value my independence. A healthy person will respect that. A manipulator will fight against it. And finally, understand this. Someone who truly loves and supports you will empower you, not trap you. They will help you grow, not make you afraid of leaving. They will encourage your independence, not punish you for wanting it. So the next time someone tries to take over your life, little by little, ask yourself, are they really helping me? Or are they just making sure I'll never be able to leave? Because once you recognize forced dependency, you take back your freedom.